Monster Synthesis Master. Chapter 361 Kill all of you. When the players heard that there was good news, their ears perked up as if they had received some important radio waves. They focused and waited for Link to speak. As I said before, Shenmue City was personally built by all the Outlanders here, and it is their home. Since this was their home, how could they not have a place to live? That's why I've reserved some houses with a good environment in the city for everyone to rest and recuperate. Hearing Link's words, the players' eyes widened in disbelief. Then, their brows gradually rose. Link was a good person. Everyone had worked so hard to build the city, but he still arranged rooms for them. He was a saint among the NPCs. However, before the players could express their gratitude, Link's next words poured cold water on their heads. Of course, there are too many Inhumans, and I can't meet the requirements for everyone to live in a house, so I can only arrange for some people to live in. For now, the residential area on the west side of Shenmue City had a total of 10 villas. In order to let everyone have the opportunity to experience a comfortable house, the 10 villas will be leased. Considering that everyone is tight on cash, I've cancelled the cash model and changed to using contribution points to rent. The first month's right to use the villa will go to the highest bidder. After that, there will be monthly auctions, and the highest bidder will get the right to use the villa. Taking into account the privacy of the villas and the number of rooms, each villa can only support up to 10 Inhumans. Many of the players present were stunned when they heard Link's request. Only a small number of them were ecstatic. Many players played the game in groups of 2 or 3, so how could there be 10 people? Furthermore, bidding with contribution points, they all had a few or 2 contribution points on them, and it would be difficult to continue even if they pooled them together. On the other hand, the players from the guilds and clubs were ecstatic. The Miracle Guild's Dog Feed King's eyes lit up like a weasel that had seen a chicken. President, this is a chance for us. The request only said that 10 people could live in the house, but it did not say that only 10 people could live in the house. We can use our contribution points to buy a villa and use it as the Miracle Guild's base camp on Wasteland Planet. Meetings can all be held together, not to mention that Shenmue City is a key city for the desert invasion. With the Sand Capital's military intelligence department, it will also be beneficial for our guild's development. With so many convenient conditions, it would be best if we could gain a firm foothold here. Wind-chasing Wolf was moved by King Gushen's words. Considering his and King Gushen's contribution points, as long as they chose to participate, they would definitely have a villa of their own. At that time, it would be the Miracle Guild's base camp. They could go to the military intelligence department to accept missions, which was quite convenient. Furthermore, the contribution points for building up Shenmue City were not the same as the contribution points for the military intelligence department in Shandu. There was no point in keeping them, so it would be better to rent a villa. Alright, then we'll participate in this auction. At the same time, the Myth Guild also decided to participate in the bidding. Lost Mon and Wind Chaser had the same idea, they both wanted to get a wave of war benefits. The Divine Wood City was built in the Goba south of Shandu, so it was clear that they wanted to deal with the extreme forces in the desert first. If they could gain a firm foothold in the Divine Wood City, they would be able to save a lot of effort in handing over missions and supplies. In order to give everyone time to communicate, the bidding will be held tomorrow afternoon. The mutant groups that want to participate in the auction can participate in the activities at the open space of the Villa Complex in the west. With that, Link left the stage and left Shenmue City under Star Constellation's escort. On the way back, Star Constellation asked a question that she couldn't figure out no matter how much she thought about it. Guild leader, the construction of Shenmue City has already ended, and the contribution points are basically useless. Why are you still arranging 10 villas for the Inhumans? If these villas were sold to the nobles of Shandu, the total value would be more than 10 million. If we give it to the Inhumans for free now, will we be able to recoup our losses? Link's lips curled into a smile. Xingziu, you should know that things that are paid for are never expensive. Free things are the most expensive. It seemed like he could get the right to use the villa for a month by paying a little contribution points that were not very useful. However, after a month, if they want to extend the lease, they will have to fork out 500 contribution points. Think about it, in order to gather that amount of contribution points, what are they going to do? Star Constellation followed Link's train of thought and replied, then I'll have to continue doing missions in Shenmue City and work hard to continue renting a villa next month. And do you know why it's not a single apartment but a villa? There are many people living in the villa, and ordinary Inhumans rarely live with other Inhumans they don't know, so it seems like it's targeted at everyone, but in fact it's only targeted at small groups of Inhumans. Hearing Link's request, Star Constellation suddenly realized. The first group to be able to participate in the competition for the 10 villas will definitely be the best of the best in the construction of this Azure Wood City. This also means that their ability and strength are not a problem. If they want to extend their lease, they will have to constantly do quests in Mystic Wood City. Furthermore, the small groups that have just arrived in Mystic Wood City will also join the competition to obtain the limited amount of villa property. Star Constellation opened her mouth slightly. These 10 villas not only drove the small groups to move in, but also any Inhumans who wanted to live in the villas. They would keep doing missions just to fight for the right to use the villas in the new month. So you know what to do, right? Asked Link. Understood. Star Constellation nodded with certainty. After the auction is over tomorrow, I'll let the Lin Financial Group's security forces enter the villa area and provide the best service to the Inhumans in the 10 villas. It will make the Inhumans who rent the villas feel that it's worth it, and make the Inhumans who didn't rent them feel hopeful. This way, the other small groups will work even harder, and the small group that I rented before will also do missions with all their might in order to maintain their leading position. You're teachable. Link nodded, satisfied. The so-called villa area was just a name that Link had come up with on the spot. The real purpose of these villas was to serve as a guild residence. However, this could not be said so obviously. With the players' current material and financial resources, directly selling permanent land would not bring them much profit. As such, in order to stimulate the players, Link had used this method of using contribution points to rent the city. This had directly stimulated the number of quests available in the entire city. At the same time, he would bind the powerful guilds firmly to his chariot and make them work for him. Lin Ke could already imagine that the guilds and clubs that wanted to participate in the auction would be frantically searching for missions in the city to earn contribution points, just so that they could successfully bid for the villa tomorrow. Kill. Kill them all. The more ruthless the better. Link chuckled in his office. As long as the players put in more effort, the sunk cost would be higher, and the bond with Shenmue City would be stronger. P.S. Chapter 25 in September has been completely updated. There's only a fixed 4,000 words for the next 10 days. No more updates. Of course, Wanjun wouldn't relax during this period of time because there were a lot of gifts and monthly votes in October. So far, there were only more than 30 chapters added next month, so Wanjun had to start saving for next month's chapters now and wait for a big wave of explosive news on November 1st, so don't stop your monthly votes, recommendation votes, and gifts. Chapter 362. You call this a low-level dungeon? Link had only used the lease rights of a few villas to bind himself to many guilds and clubs. This business was a sure win. One could imagine how intense the battle for the auction tomorrow would be. However, since the rules had been set, Link didn't have to worry about what happened next. Although the Shitu military and government followed a committee system, Link now had a say in all aspects of the Shitu. He could even be considered the actual decision-maker of the Shitu policy. Link had extorted a lot of money from the 4 commanders for the establishment of the Military Intelligence Division. The 4 commanders had contributed, but in the end, Link had taken all the glory. However, there was nothing they could do about it. The 4 commanders' biggest trump card was the soldiers in their hands. If they were sent to the front lines to fight against the machinery faith, they would be replaced after suffering heavy losses. But now that Link had taken the initiative to request for a city defense in the south, it actually saved them some trouble. Sending some people to help was already their best effort. The people sent were all their trusted aides. They could also see how the military intelligence division operated and how effective it was. However, by the time the four commanders realized the power of the military intelligence division, it was already too late for regrets. There were a lot of pending investigations in Shatutko, as well as some infiltration and destruction activities in the desert. When General Alongso had been around, Commander Dai Yi had often arranged for the Special Intelligence Department to cooperate with other departments. However, after General Alongso had been killed, most of the Special Intelligence Department's elites had been sent to investigate the matter. In order to preserve his strength, Dai Yi had stopped his infiltration and destruction of the desert. Hence, after the Military Intelligence Division was set up, Dai Yi handed over many unfinished plans and missions to Link. Link looked through the missions and plans that Dai Yi had done in the past and thought even more highly of this Commander Dai, who was known as White Terror. Dai Yi was the most low profile of the four commanders, and so was Shako. You could see soldiers in the Air Force, Land Force, and Special Forces uniforms in Chitu, but you would never find intelligence personnel from the Special Forces. However, the intelligence personnel of the Special Intelligence Division were everywhere, and everything that happened in Shandu every day was in the hands of the intelligence personnel. They were like invisible ghosts that surrounded people, also known as the White Terror. The missions designed by Dai Yi fit the players perfectly. After reading them, Lin Ke decided to assign all the missions to the game. When the military staff entered the underground world, they were immediately stunned by the huge place in front of them. An intelligence officer of Shattursk couldn't help but sigh. I thought that the Military Intelligence Division was just a casual arrangement by committee member Lin, mainly to ensure the safety of his own castle of Howl and the Divine Tree of Noxie. I didn't expect it to be of such a scale. It's like a second underground black market. As an intelligence agent in the underground black market, he was all too familiar with it. This massive underground world was built in a more reasonable way than the underground black market. The Military Intelligence Department was the center of the building, and the main building was confirmed, which also confirmed its position. Everything in the underground world was for the Military Intelligence Department. It seemed that committee member Lin was going to do something big this time. All military personnel were to be stationed in the Military Intelligence Department and take their positions according to the prior arrangements. In just 20 minutes, the various departments had finished meeting, getting to know each other, and could officially start working. The efficiency was amazing. When the Military Intelligence Department was officially opened, a steady stream of players entered the underground world. They were instantly stunned by the scene in front of them. However, after a while, all the players who had come to join in the fun were dumbfounded. Even the lowest level mission from the Military Intelligence Department in Shandu required the player to be at least level 10. The players who had participated in the Go to the Mountains and Go to the Countryside to build Shenmue City were all level 8, and the slightly higher ones were level 9. They were still a short distance away from the mission's requirement of level 10. The players looked at the list of missions that the Military Intelligence Division provided. Sneak into the desert to kill the Machinery Faith fanatics, destroy the temporary camp of the Machinery Faith, find the spy of the Wasteland Gang in Shandu, and stop the upcoming terrorist attack. There was a dazzling array of mission types, and it was finally not a construction mission. It was like a tide of the times. He was finally going to confront the extremist forces. The rewards for these missions were also quite generous. Other than experience, there were also contribution points and reputation points. At the same time, there was a contribution point exchange office within the Military Intelligence Division. The military standard weapons, equipment, and all kinds of items were dazzling to the eye, making one drool. It was a pity that he could only look at the equipment and not get it. Unsurprisingly, this level 10 limit was also set by Link. The players' levels were too low, and they didn't even have basic combat experience. If they rashly went to the desert to fight, it would be completely equivalent to giving experience to the zealots. So, in order for the players to have a good performance in the desert, Link decided to train them before they went out to train their combat ability. Sigh, Link had been so worried about these players. The players entered the military intelligence department full of anticipation, but when they came out, they were all dejected. With the completion of the Divine Wood City, there were no more missions for the time being. The military intelligence department's missions required players to be at least level 10 to accept, and the players were suddenly caught in a dilemma. Could it be that he had to return to Shandu to do some F&E level missions? One must know that 6,500 experience points were required to go from level 9 to level 10. If he were to do an errand mission, each mission would give him 100 to 200 experience points. He would need to do at least 30 missions to reach level 10. While the ordinary players were at their wits' end, Wind-Chasing Wolf and the members of Miracle gathered together. How much experience do you all lack now? The members of the Miracle Guild followed Wind every day to complete the quests with high experience and rewards. In addition, the guild leader had scattered coins at the beginning, so they had also gotten guns at the first moment. Their speed of completing quests was also faster than ordinary players. They had already reached level 9. I have 1200 experience points now. I'm still short of 5300, King Gozhung said. The other elite members also reported their experience. Most of them were around level 9. Due to Wind Chaser's closed beta experience, the Miracle Guild's players did not level up their skill levels during the leveling process. Instead, they leveled up all the way. After all, he was a veteran player of the Hall of the Exalted and had an extraordinary understanding of the game. Wind-Chasing Wolf personally experienced the closed beta and found that the effect of the skill level in the early stage was not as real as the 3 potential points. Moreover, no matter how high the damage of a skill level was, other than some classes with long-range skills, the skills of other melee classes had no hope of attacking at close range. The damage was far less than that of a pistol. Therefore, after the open beta started, Wind-Chasing Wolf's only request was to join the Freedom Federation camp and put all his experience into leveling up. After Wind-Chasing Wolf heard his words, he was silent for a moment before saying, "If everyone's level is about the same, then follow me back to Shandu today. I'll take you to a place to level up." As a core member of the Miracle Guild, King Gozhung had participated in the data analysis of the closed beta. His eyes immediately lit up. "Guild leader, you're not talking about the hotel gunfight instance dungeon, right?" Wind nodded with certainty. "Today we got 90,000 wasteland coins. The members have reached level 9. It's time to experience the dungeon." Gunfight Hotel was a low-level dungeon. The recommended level was level 510, and the requirement was to kill 10 Jack Gang fighters. "Later, when we return to the Sand City, we'll upgrade our equipment. After that, you'll go to the instance dungeon." Wind started to calculate. The reward for clearing the dungeon is 2000 experience points. The fighters of the Jack Gang are level 5. 1 is 150 experience points, 10 are 1500 experience points. I can get 3500 experience points in one trip. If you perform well and get a good or above evaluation, you'll get more experience. The dungeon could be cleared once a day. He would take advantage of the time today to clear one wave, and then another wave after midnight. After 2 runs of the dungeon, he would be able to level up to level 10. That way, we can reach level 10 as quickly as possible, and then return to the Military Intelligence Department at Godwood City. We'll then have priority in choosing missions. The eyes of the elite members surrounding Wind Chaser lit up as if they could already see the Miracle Guild leading the other guilds. This plan is feasible. Gozhung King looked at the time. It was already 5 in the afternoon. If they made the best use of their time, it would be possible. However, King Dog Leftovers seemed to have thought of something, and there was some hesitation in its tone. "President, what about the villa auction tomorrow? If we spend more time leveling up, will the other guilds surpass us?" Wind-chasing wolf raised the corner of his mouth. Our contribution points added together are enough to surpass most players. Furthermore, the remaining brothers' contribution points were not low. The only one who can threaten us is Lost Mon from the Myth Guild. As for that Liver King solo player Cha Sha True Prophet, he's all alone and probably won't join any other forces in a short time. There are 10 villas in total, and we only need to take one of them. It won't be a problem for us to get into the top 10. The Miracle Guild gathered for a meeting and suddenly felt that time was tight. Wind-chasing wolf didn't deliberately hide his whereabouts. After all, with his current popularity in the game, it was unrealistic for the man who was the most searched to completely hide his whereabouts. Wind-chasing wolf directly led the members to the weapons store. Riot helmets, bulletproof vests, submachine guns, assault rifles, and riot shields were purchased according to the characteristics of the members. By the time the members of the Miracle Guild came out of the weapons store, they were all armed from head to toe. Dressed in professional equipment, he looked like a special forces officer. The other passerby players were full of enthusiasm, as if they had seen a boss in the legends holding a dragon-slaying saber, or a godlike tycoon carrying a chicken leg staff in the world of monsters, with shiny equipment that made people envious. Based on the players' understanding of the weapons and equipment in Shandu, the price of this set of equipment would be at least 3,000 wasteland coins. Alright, now that we've bought all the equipment, let's go back to Shandu. Wind-chasing wolf waved his hand and led his team to the short-distance bus station in Chenmu City. The roads between Chenmu City and Shandu were already open to traffic, and the short-distance buses and other vehicles had already been arranged. The group immediately rushed back to Shandu. It had to be said that Mystic Wood City was truly convenient. If he were to buy weapons and equipment in the Sand City, he would have to rush to several shops. However, there was a one-stop shop in Chenmu City. The weapons shop and the equipment shop were all on the same street, so as long as he looked at the right target, he could buy them in minutes. Very quickly, the news of the Miracle Guild's elite team equipping themselves with high-quality weapons and equipment and leaving Shenmu City for the Sand Capital spread like wildfire, spreading among the players of Shenmu City. It couldn't be helped, Wind-chasing wolf and his group were too eye-catching. While the other players were still wearing ordinary civilian clothes and had guns at their waists. The Miracle Guild had already equipped themselves with weapons and equipment comparable to the Shandu's soldiers. They were the most eye-catching players on the road. Not to mention the players, even the staff of Lin's financial group couldn't help but take a few more glances and tease Wind, the small leader of Kylan Hall, when he brought his underlings. Guildmaster, I saw a group of people from the Miracle Guild, fully armed, taking a bus back to Shandu. Lost Mon furrowed his brows slightly. At this crucial moment in the auction of the villa, why did the Miracle Guild not continue to complete missions in Chenmu City to accumulate contribution points? Why had all of them returned to Shandu? You said they're fully armed. Did they all buy new equipment? Lost Mon suddenly caught the main point in his words. That's right, they directly bought things from the weapons and equipment store in Chenmu City. According to my rough calculations, they were all worth at least 3,000 wasteland coins. Lost Mon sucked in a breath of cold air with a hiss and could not help but sigh, he's really rich. He just got a bonus and he's giving it away. $3,000 for a full set of equipment would be around $6,000 in real life. The insurance for all of his equipment would cost more than $7,000. The cost of these 20 people was $140,000. This time, Lost Mon was even more confused. Wind Chaser was the guild master of the Miracle Guild. If he was in such a hurry and spent so much money on equipment, he must have some big plan. He didn't even care about the villa auction tomorrow, didn't do any missions, and didn't even take any contribution points. Wasn't he afraid that he would be overtaken by others at the auction tomorrow? But very quickly, Lost Mon found the answer in the forum. The average level of the players in Shandu had reached level 7, and it was difficult to level up by doing ordinary errand missions. At this time, many players found that there were often closed beta players above level 10 in front of the entrance of an inconspicuous hotel at the three-way junction in front of the garbage dump in the Shadow slum. Closed beta players often loitered downstairs for a while, looked around until no one noticed them, and then ran upstairs. His sneaky appearance was very much like an old porter who couldn't resist the loneliness and went to the bath center at night. Some curious players followed them and found a dungeon gate on the 5th floor of a dilapidated roadside inn. Room 505 of the roadside inn was a basic single-player dungeon called Hotel Gunfight. The case has been solved. Wind Chasing Wolf is a closed beta player and has been in Shadow, so he must know about this basic instance. This guy is now fully armed, so he's obviously aiming for this beginner instance dungeon. Lost Mo Wen's eyes lit up. Everyone in the Miracle Guild is level 9. This guy is preparing to bring his members through dungeons to level up quickly. He will return to Shenmue City when he is level 10 and receive the Military Intelligence Division's mission before everyone else. Just as Mo Wen, who was lost, saw through Zui Feng's thoughts. In the slums of Shandu. At the three-way junction in the garbage dump. Hotel, at the entrance of room 505. King Gozheng walked out of the dungeon, his clothes tattered and his helmet riddled with bullet holes. His face was covered in dust. This thing is actually worthy of being called a beginner-level instance dungeon. I'm so sorry for the game designer. I've played games for so many years, but this is the first time I've experienced such a difficult beginner-level dungeon. Chapter 363. A legendary level has appeared. After Gozheng King came out, he found that Wind Chasing Wolf was the only one at the entrance of the dungeon. None of the other guild members had come out. Gozheng King let out a breath of air and sat down against the wall. He asked, "Where are they? Haven't they come out yet?" Zui Feng sighed and flicked the cigarette ash. "They've already come out, but they've gone in again." Gozheng King was stunned for a moment and didn't understand the meaning of Wind's words. "They all died and went in to fight again." Zui Feng helplessly nodded. Although he was very clear about the strength of the elite members, he still overestimated their combat ability in the narrow staircases. Even if they were fully armed, it was indeed a very difficult thing to suppress 10 gangsters in the stairwell without any cover. This was especially true for the first time they entered a dungeon. It was their first time experiencing a single-player dungeon in awkward terrain. However, this was the only time. This time, the members of the elite group would definitely be able to clear the stage smoothly. King Gozheng nodded and couldn't help but say, however, to be honest, this beginner-level instance dungeon was indeed difficult. Even I almost failed and barely got a normal rating in the end. King Gozheng recalled the battle earlier and was filled with fear. I've played games for 10 years, but this is the first time I've seen a dungeon of this difficulty. To deal with 10 enemies in such a narrow corridor, and the AI of the enemies is quite high, with all kinds of tactical techniques. If the weapons and equipment were slightly worse, I'm afraid it would be GG. By the way, how did you clear the game before? Gozheng King remembered that the guild leader had cleared the Hotel Gunfight instance dungeon during the closed beta. Back then, the guild leader did not have such good weapons and equipment. Wind Chasing Wolf remembered the scene when he first entered the instance in the closed beta. At that time, he didn't have such good weapons and equipment. Do I have to tell you that I've died more than 10 times in the instance dungeon before I figured out a way to clear it? His words that had gone through the vicissitudes of life, coupled with his mouth puffing out clouds of smoke, gave people a feeling that there was a story behind it. This time, Wind didn't teach the elite members his experience. He didn't even tell them what the inside of the dungeon was like. He just let them experience it by themselves. After all, as a member of an elite team, he still had his own personal combat skills. If he directly told them the method to clear the level, it would be the same as pulling up seedlings to help them. With such good equipment, if he had to tell them how to clear the dungeon, then he might as well not play this game. The members who could join the Miracle Guild's elite team had all been selected through the voting of the Miracle Guild's core members. There was no need to doubt their game understanding and strength. Zui Feng was leaning against the wall, but he was thinking about other things. Clearing the gunfight hotel dungeon was not difficult for him. The difficult part was how to increase the dungeon rating and obtain more experience and rewards. Ever since the last day of the closed beta, the water monsters found the legendary NPC painter in the dungeon. This news was like a nuclear bomb, spreading among the closed beta players on Wasteland Planet. It became a unique tacit understanding between the closed beta players. No one made this matter public, only spreading it in their own core circle. As long as one could discover the legendary NPC in the dungeon and successfully kill 10 enemies, they would receive a good evaluation. Wind-chasing wolf could only reach this evaluation at most, and he didn't know how to reach the excellent and perfect evaluation. It was reasonable to say that for a low-level dungeon to find a legendary NPC, it could definitely be regarded as an excellent/perfect evaluation. However, Wind-chasing wolf found the painter and defeated 10 Jack Gang fighters, but the system only gave him a good evaluation. Wind-chasing wolf had also checked all the rooms in the inn, but he still couldn't increase his rating. Could it be that I can only find Link and dig deeper into Painter John to raise the evaluation of the dungeon? Wind knew during the closed beta that Link and the Painter John were inextricably linked. In terms of understanding of Painter John, Wind-chasing wolf patted his chest and said he was second, but no one dared to say they were first. However, even with Wind-chasing wolf's understanding of the Painter John, he couldn't advance the dungeon evaluation, which made him very angry. That was why he agreed with the words of the king of dog leftovers. He was already level 12. But for a beginner dungeon with a recommended level of 510 to not get a perfect rating, it was very strange. Could it be that Gunfight Hotel had some sort of secret hidden within it? Or could it be that he had to do something in order to get a high rating? Or perhaps Yo-Yo could start from the background of the instance to find clues. Just as Wind was thinking, someone suddenly walked out of the halo gate of the instance. Her hair was messy, and her body was in a mess. The only clean thing was her row of white, shiny teeth. Guild leader, I didn't fail my mission and cleared the stage. As soon as the members of the elite group came out, they started to complain. I have to say, this instance is really difficult. Even with such equipment, it's still so difficult to fight. The terrain of this hotel corridor is too disgusting. Zui Feng came back to his senses and looked at King Gozheng with a smile. It seemed that they had encountered the same problem. That's why I didn't tell you guys the strategy in advance. Don't ever think of the concept of a basic dungeon in other games as destiny. Even if it's just a basic dungeon in this game, there are still many things to explore. Wind pointed at himself. Take me as an example. Although I am level 12, I can only get a good rating at most. I don't know how to get an excellent or perfect rating. The king of dog leftovers and the elite members who came out were all shocked. Even a player like the guild leader who was in the closed beta period could not get a higher rating in this level 510 beginner dungeon. It seemed like the guild master was right. Destiny was full of details and stories, and even a beginner level dungeon couldn't be underestimated. The members of the elite group came out one after another, and everyone had cleared the dungeon. Most of the members received a normal rating, while a few members received a secondary rating. 2 of the members received additional rewards from the system when they cleared the stage. One of them received a green quality dagger, and the other received a green quality material. Although it was only a dagger that added 1 agility point, this player treated it American Samoa a treasure. After all, he had finally gotten a piece of green equipment after being in the game for so many days. Moreover, this player's class happened to be Pugilist Rogue, so this dagger was perfect for him. The drop of green quality weapons and materials excited the elite team. In one instance, their rewards were the low-quality pistols they had looted from the thugs, a few $100s of income, the thugs' experience, and the experience reward for clearing the instance. If he didn't compare himself to the European king in the team, he was already considered pretty good. 10 low-quality pistols could be sold for 1,000 or 2 in a weapon store. The income from one trip was quite considerable. Now, he had a better chance of obtaining green quality weapons and materials. The number of players who could obtain green quality weapons and equipment could be counted on one's fingers. Hence, the price of a single piece of equipment had skyrocketed to 2,000 to 3,000 wasteland coins. If converted to cash, that was 4,000 to 5,000 yuan. Selling one of those weapons was almost equivalent to a month's salary. You guys have already remembered the location of the instance dungeon and figured out the way to clear it. I don't have to worry about it. I only have one request for you, and that is to reach level 10 before the sun rises tomorrow. Then, go to the Azurewood Military Intelligence Department to accept missions. Don't accept any missions related to the machinery faith. Look for those that investigate undercover agents in Shandu and stop destruction. Don't worry, President. King Gozheng patted his chest. We'll definitely complete the mission. Then, everyone left the hotel. Wind-chasing Wolf returned to Kailan Hall to report his work. The others, led by King Gozheng, went to the weapon shop to get rid of their guns and replenish some combat supplies. Those with low health would go to the hospital to recuperate and wait for the second wave of dungeon travel after midnight. After the Miracle Guild's members left, the players who had been waiting outside carefully entered the hotel. They wanted to see what was inside this ordinary-looking building. As the players went up floor by floor, they finally saw a door of light with a blue vortex on the 5th floor. The dungeon entrance. So there's an instance dungeon in this hotel. The players were stunned when they saw the blue vortex. Who would have thought that there would be a dungeon in this place? Without any instructions or plot guidance, the dungeon suddenly appeared in front of room 505. We've solved the case. So the Miracle Guild came here to clear an instance dungeon. Soon, the information of the dungeon appeared before the players' eyes. Instance dungeon name, gunfight at the hotel. Suggested level, LV5 LV10. Dungeon mode, single player survival type dungeon. Plot outline, the slums of Shandu have always been known for being chaotic. When you first came to Shandu and stayed in a small hotel, you were unexpectedly targeted by members of the Jack Gang. This time, the other party sent 10 people to besiege you, and the situation is in danger. Dungeon objective, defeat the Jack Gang's hatchet man, 0/10, and successfully escape from the hotel. Clearance reward, 2,000 experience points. The pub players were ecstatic. It was actually a beginner solo survival dungeon. 2,000 experience points for clearing the game? That's too much. The players gasped. The current errand missions that players took on only gave 100 to 200 experience points, but this dungeon alone gave them 2,000 experience points. The difference was too much. The few pub players who had discovered the dungeon looked at the dungeon's introduction and immediately became interested. The recommended level for instance dungeons was level 510, which meant that the lowest level to enter was level 5. Now that they were all level 7, and the dungeon mode was a single-player survival-type dungeon, it looked like a guide-type beginner dungeon, commonly known as a welfare dungeon. The players looked at each other and walked into the glowing dungeon gate without saying a word. Their figures disappeared in an instant. 3 minutes later, several players appeared at the entrance of the dungeon. Their faces, which had been grimacing in pain, thinking that they had found the password to their wealth, were now flushed red. Isn't this instance dungeon too difficult? The corridor is so narrow, and we have to face the attack of 10 people at the same time. There's no place to hide. Don't say any more. I realized that something was wrong and immediately turned around to escape. However, the thugs of the Jack Gang were very smart. They directly attacked me from both the upper and lower floors, blocking me at the stairway. I felt that something was wrong and immediately ran back to my room. I wanted to jump down from the building, but the anti-theft net on the window was removed. I just fell to my death when I jumped down. There must be a bug in this instance dungeon. There's no chance of escaping from the encirclement of 10 people. The corridor is so narrow. It's impossible to line up with a revolver. If we have some heavy firepower weapon, we might be able to suppress the enemy. The few of them immediately fell into deep thought. The Sand City prohibited the use of explosives, so it was impossible for players to get their hands on it with their current channels. Heavy firearms were also monopolized by the military, and the arms dealers on the street couldn't buy powerful individual weapons at all. It would be great if this was a team dungeon. We can get an explosion-proof shield and the rest of the people will follow behind with guns. But in this single-player dungeon, even an explosion-proof shield was useless. You can defend one side, but if you can't defend the other, you'll be completely screwed if you get surrounded. This corridor reminds me of the hero's true colors. It's like a copy. Brother Ma held a shotgun in one hand and killed his way out. He's so cool. The shotgun was really good. In this kind of corridor battle, the shotgun is invincible, has great lethality, and has a group attack effect. It's the best weapon to fight against a group of people. As the players conversed with each other, their inspiration collided and surged, and they immediately came up with a seemingly feasible solution. I went to a second-hand weapon store the day before yesterday and saw the price of a shotgun. The SAW shotguns are the cheapest. A second-hand one can be bought for 400 to 500 yuan, then double-barreled shotguns, pump-action rifles, and the most expensive is the semi-automatic combat grapeshot, which costs 1,000 to 2,000 yuan each. He left just like that. A few casual players gathered together and went downstairs. After the dungeon trip just now, the fellow sufferers had already formed a battle friendship. It felt like a girl holding hands to go to the bathroom during a break. On the way, they didn't stop their discussion. However, a problem arose during this discussion. Terms like dungeon, gunfight, clearance, and experience were heard by players passing by. Especially the word dungeon, it was too sensitive for players. Soon, some players found the hotel gunfight instance dungeon. The news of a dungeon appearing in Sand City quickly appeared on the Wasteland forum. A screenshot of the dungeon's introduction instantly caused an uproar on the forum. In less than half an hour, almost all the players on Wasteland Planet knew that there was a dungeon called Hotel Gunfight on the 5th floor of a hotel at a fork in the garbage dump of Shandu slum. Link read the discussion forum in his office and sighed. It wasn't easy. This dungeon has finally been exposed. Just as Lin K was done with the thread and refreshed the forum, another piece of news caught his attention. Shock! I found a legendary NPC in the Gunfight Hotel Instance Dungeon. Chapter 364 How many floors do you have to carry a bag of rice? Link was stunned when he saw the title of the post. From the discovery of the Gunfight Hotel Dungeon to the spread of the news, only half an hour had passed. In such a short time, a player had actually discovered John's figure. Link was completely stunned. After a while, he rubbed his temples and mumbled to himself, "It seems that I have underestimated the players. With such a large player base, as long as one of them is in an accident, John might be discovered." This incident didn't affect Link much. He had thought that it would take some time for players to discover the secret of the dungeon. He didn't expect that it would only take half an hour from the time the players discovered the dungeon to John being discovered. However, this also reminded Link that he could guide the players, but it would be difficult to hide it. Link clicked on the post and saw that it was almost the same as the one posted by the water monster on the last day of the closed beta. When the players were unfamiliar with the NPCs and the level difference was too big, they could not see much data. Sometimes, they could not even see the level, only the template type behind the level. However, the word legendary left the players who had discovered the painter dumbfounded. Ever since they had entered the game, the highest level and strongest player that the players of the Sand Capital had ever seen was none other than Link. The players could only see some of Lin K's data because he had deliberately released it to the players. By releasing part of the data, he could gain the players' trust and build his image. With the players' own imagination, it would save Lin K a lot of unnecessary trouble. Now that the players had found an NPC that was even more powerful than Link in the low-level instance dungeon gunfight in the inn, it immediately caused a heated discussion. A legendary NPC. That means he's stronger than Link. Did we guess wrong? Is he the main character of Wasteland Planet? Drawing with the help of the moonlight, with a head of messy hair casually hanging down and a slim suit, this is a complete artist. Seeing the artist's unruly and mature image of a wastrel, many female players had already regarded this legendary NPC uncle whose name they did not know as the second male god on Wasteland. As for the number 1 Prince Charming, it was naturally the philanthropist Link of Shadow. I wonder if OP interacted with this legendary NPC. Did you gain anything? My god, there are so many hidden talents in Shandu. To find a legendary NPC in a low-level dungeon, is this an Easter egg or a hidden plot? The players enthusiastically replied to the post and expressed their opinions. The players in Shandu were especially excited. This was because this instance dungeon was in Shandu, not far from them. Moreover, the appearance of this dungeon was like a timely rain, allowing them to safely pass through level 710. The players who were born elsewhere on Wasteland Planet seemed to be wearing a mask of pain, and their expressions were pained and ferocious. They didn't care about a commander-level NPC like Link. After all, every city had a commander-level NPC in charge. It was just that they couldn't come into contact with one with their current identities. Dungeons weren't rare either. They were definitely everywhere, and they would be found sooner or later. However, legendary NPCs were not common. If he could find clues in advance or even build a good relationship with them, there would be great benefits. What made these foreign players uncomfortable was that it was not easy for them to gain a foothold in the local area and manage their relationship with the NPCs. Now that a legendary NPC had suddenly appeared in a low-level dungeon in Shandu, even if they gave up everything they had and ran there, the clues and information about the NPC would have been completely divided up by the players in Shandu. Not even a bone would be left. They had also wasted precious leveling time and rushed there. It could be said that they had suffered a double loss. However, if they didn't go over, they would be letting the players and guilds in Sand City rise up, giving up the advantages of the entire version. If they had a choice, they wouldn't have to do this. The key was that he had no choice. However, some of the large guilds only laughed when they saw this message. The guild leader of World Dragon grumbled after reading the post. The price of 1 million in the early stages was to allow the guild to establish an advantage at the beginning of the game, and then continue to establish the reputation of being the number 1 guild in China in the game. During this period of time, with the game coins that he had bought from the bank exchange system at the start of the game, Long Enmity Heaven and his men had indeed made a name for themselves in Dragon City. They had also dug out some plot information. The Dragon's Resentment had participated in the closed beta before. On the day the closed beta was closed, a player called the White Ticket Water Monster had found the legendary NPC artist in the hotel gunfight instance. It was still fresh in his memory. Therefore, after the public beta had entered the game, the Heaven of Resentment had gathered some information about the mysterious artist while doing missions with doubts in his mind. In the end, he had found some clues. Although the Heavenly Dragon was calm, the other members of the guild could no longer sit still. Brother Tien, what do we do now? The public beta players have found out about the painter. Should we go over or say? What are you panicking for? The NPC is in the dungeon. When the players reach the level to enter the dungeon, won't they be discovered sooner or later? How long do you expect this matter to be kept a secret? But if that's the case, won't all the information that we've gathered in advance be in vain? The guilds in Sand City must be trying their best to clear the dungeon's hidden content. If another player like Wind Chaser gets there first, the entire guild will enjoy the benefits. The guild leader, Panamela, said excitedly. Long Yantian had his own judgment and said unhurriedly, since this game is controlled by the AI, you have to believe in balance. It was impossible for the game to release the main plot before the players had a firm foothold and understood the game system. According to the information we've gathered, the legendary NPC is most likely the painter who is known as the number 1 assassin on Wasteland Planet. According to our information, he went into seclusion 5 years ago and disappeared. How could he appear on the player's only path so easily? My guess is that this appearance in the beginner level instance dungeon is most likely a foreshadowing for the game, just like how many rich and powerful people in Dragon City change their expressions when they talk about the experience of the painter. It's all a form of contrast. However, the Dragon City instance dungeon was described by many NPCs, while the Sand City instance dungeon was only a glimpse and briefly mentioned. The essence is to exaggerate the mysterious and powerful strength of this legendary NPC. I can't deny that you're right, President, Panamela said with a conflicted expression, but Fate is very new. It's different from the mouse and keyboard games we've played before. The main plot of the game can't be stuck to the fixed template of the past. If we're wrong, it'll affect our status in China. The contract clearly states that Traveling Dragon has to establish our reputation in the game and be one of the top 3 forces in the guild. Long Yuan Tian chuckled and nodded. Then, he patted Panamela's shoulder and said, "Don't worry. I've already sent some of our brothers in Shandu to scout the instance dungeon. If there's any clue that the painter is indeed in Shandu, we'll rush over immediately." After hearing the president's arrangement, Panamela heaved a sigh of relief, and her nervous expression gradually relaxed. "Brother Tian, so you had already made arrangements? I've been worried for nothing." "You're not worrying for nothing. According to the in-game time, it has been nearly 4 months since the white ticket water monster found the painter in the instance. With the painter's elusive nature, he definitely wouldn't stay in one place for so long. And if the painter shows up, not only will we look for him, but the NPCs will also look for him. According to the current situation, although there are many players, most of them are still at the bottom of the game and can't come into contact with the information channels of the high-level NPCs. Right now, aside from leveling up, his top priority was to find a way to build connections with the upper echelons. This is the only way we can get the news the moment the painter appears." "Understood." Panamela nodded seriously. "Tianji, I understand." Most of the closed beta players had the same opinion as the Heavenly Dragon. This dungeon Easter egg had appeared since the closed beta period. Moreover, after the open beta, many closed beta players had sneaked into the Hotel Gunfight instance dungeon, but no matter what they did, they only got 2 kinds of feedback from the painter. One was to ignore the players and treat them as air. The other was to enrage the painter and end up being killed by a pencil. However, for the public beta players, being able to see a legendary NPC in person was a form of motivation and excitement. A large number of players swarmed into the dungeon, wanting to see the artist's style while they leveled up. However, in less than 3 minutes, the players who were originally in high spirits appeared at the dungeon entrance with their heads down. He had indeed met the artist in person, but this beginner-level instance was too difficult. It was like being beaten up by 10 lackeys of the Jack Gang. Level 510 is recommended. Are you sure the system is not joking? We can't even guarantee that we can clear this dungeon at level 10. Who can beat the other side's hatchet man at level 5? I never thought that a beginner instance dungeon would be this difficult. However, after meeting a legendary NPC, I can die without regrets. Hiss, the power of a legend is so terrifying. I only provoked it a little, and I was killed by the painter with a pencil. I can't see anything. The only information I can find is legendary. The rest is unknown. The entire 5th floor was filled with people. There were even some brave players who pried open the room where the painter had stayed before. In the end, they were grabbed by the bald man who was the new resident inside. All kinds of painful cries came from the door as he shut it. He was ruthlessly beaten up. The discovery of the dungeon in Sand City had already excited the players. Now that they had discovered a legendary NPC in the dungeon, the players' enthusiasm for the dungeon was even higher. Now, Wind could enjoy so many privileges in the Sand City with only Link. If they could ride on the painter's car, wouldn't they be able to enjoy the convenience of the entire Freedom Federation? Link couldn't help but chuckle as he read the analysis on the player forums. If the players really wanted to use the artist's name, the first thing they would attract wouldn't be the convenience of the Freedom Federation, but the arrest of the various major forces. Now that the beginner-level dungeons have appeared, no matter if it's Shenmue City or Sand City's players, they will be able to smoothly pass their current levels and train their combat techniques. Once we reach level 10, we'll have a new group of players, and it'll be time for us to experience the players' terror. The technology level of the machinery faith had already touched the threshold of intelligent machinery. However, under the unique background of the wasteland planet, the machinery faith added more skill points to the energy cycle. Moreover, the machinery faith had not completely broken away from the human body and mind. They were only one step away from officially becoming an intelligent machine. The universe's three natural disasters were the insect swarm, the intelligent machine, and the demon. Soon, Link could see the violent clash between the machinery faith, which had yet to evolve into an intelligent machine, and the players of the fourth calamity, who were just starting to show their strength. The night passed. When Link woke up again, he washed up and brought a cup of coffee to the balcony. Taking a look at the Earth Dragon King in its blood cocoon state had almost become a daily routine for him during this period of time. Link then sat on a rattan chair on the balcony with his legs crossed, enjoying the fresh air from the god tree Noxie. After entering the forum, Link's sleepiness disappeared. Tisk, tisk, tisk. It's only been one night, and the players have already found a way to clear the dungeon. Link had already found several strategy guides on the forum. They were all about how to clear the gunfight in the inn. After scanning through the list, he realized that the most important part was the choice of weapon. He had to choose a grape shotgun. Only grape shotguns could suppress several times the number of enemies in the narrow corridor. If one had 15 points of strength and could hold a grape shotgun at the same time, the chances of clearing the game would be greatly increased. In addition, many hardcore players had taken a detailed screenshot of the dungeon map and analyzed how to clear it. There were even videos recorded by high-level players who posted on the internet, teaching players how to step on the spot, block vision, and pull the gun to kill. Many players cleared the gunfight in the hotel dungeon overnight, but most of them were still trying to figure out how to do it. Different from the previous mouse and keyboard games, this was a virtual simulation game, and all the actions had to be performed by the player. At the same time, another problem was brought to the table. As a group of players cleared the stage, the clear rating appeared in everyone's view. The difference between a normal rating and a good rating was whether they could find the legendary artist in the hotel. However, no one had discovered the conditions to unlock the excellent rating. Seeing the players' enthusiasm and research into the dungeon, Link could not help but smile. After this round of dungeons, the players' combat skills and strength would be greatly improved. Soon, the machinery faith would be able to experience the horror of players with combat experience. Chapter 365 Program Planning. Link read the forum for a while and had his breakfast on the balcony. He then returned to his room. He remembered that in his previous life, Link had played Fate from a player's perspective. Although there was no gunfight in Instance Dungeon at that time, some players had discovered other Instance Dungeons. Back then, the situation was similar to now. Well-known technical players, or those who were good at analyzing, would create strategies and videos to help players clear the dungeon. At the same time, they would gain a lot of attention and fame, becoming an influential player in the game. In this life, Lin Li had a different perception of the player's behavior from the perspective of an NPC. It was no wonder that NPCs were afraid of Inhumans. Their powerful learning ability and adaptability were enough to make any individual or organization feel afraid. In just one night, the players had managed to replicate 90% of the dungeon's flow with their numerical advantage and analytical ability. Analyzing the most suitable weapon for the scenario, analyzing the movement trajectory and reaction of the 10 Jack gang members, and even using behavioral psychology to analyze the character of each member. A single-player survival-type dungeon actually made the players play so well. It was hard to imagine that this was the result of just one night. In the past, Link was also part of the wave of players. However, now that he was looking at the players from an NPC's point of view, he had a different perception. He was amazed by the players' creativity and powerful ability to correct mistakes. Link had no doubt that in a few days, players would realize that as long as they tipped John and praised his work, they would be able to get a perfect evaluation. Link returned to his office from the balcony and gave the Military Intelligence Department a call. "How many missions have you assigned since yesterday?" The sound of typing came from the other end of the phone. After a while, he said, reporting, "Sir. The Military Intelligence Division has been officially opened since 17 o'clock yesterday. So far, there are a total of 189 people who have received 47 missions. Among them, 80% are to find the spies hiding in Shadu, and 20% are to enter the Gobi Desert to destroy infrastructure and ambush the Zealot team." Hearing this, Link nodded and said in a low voice, "Gao Qinchao is likely to have a wave of Inhumans taking on missions next. All departments in the Military Intelligence Department must cooperate sincerely to improve work efficiency and produce results as soon as possible. We'll wait for the military and political conference at the end of the year and strive to become the best department in the entire military department this year." Link hung up after giving the instructions. He leaned back in his chair and muttered to himself, "I didn't expect there to be 189 level 10 players in Shudu. That's quite a number. This group of players could definitely be regarded as the first army of the players in Shandu. Moreover, there were many benefits to the missions in the Military Intelligence Department. The variety of missions was abundant, and the rewards were generous. Contribution points could also be exchanged for items. They could choose to carry out sabotaging missions outside the city or to find the spies hiding in Shandu. The exciting mission content made the players' blood boil. Almost all the missions started at D rank, which was much better than the old grandma's errand-running mission, which was smelly and had a long foot-binding cloth. It also gave the players a sense of reality as if they had officially joined the special situation under the current of the times, and they were personally involved in the many changes in Sand City. The first army in Shandu was also very smart. Although the rewards for entering the desert to destroy and assassinate were generous, the desert was far away, and the players did not know the strength of the machinery faith zealots. Rashly entering the desert was simply courting death. It was better to take on some missions related to the spies in the Sand City and get some information about the machinery faith before considering entering the desert. The Military Intelligence Division's mission was to accept as long as one met the set hard power requirements. And the mission was open to all Inhumans who met the requirements. For example, the same quest could be accepted by dozens of players at the same time. The quest reward would be given to whoever could bring the loot back to hand in the quest. It also supported group missions, and they had to register when they accepted the mission. After the mission ended, the stipulated rewards would be divided equally among the registered teams. This prevented the team leader from accepting the mission alone and escaping after taking the reward. Other than that, Link also used the programmers from the other departments of the Lin Financial Group to work overtime to produce the military intelligence application. He wanted the players to be able to accept missions anytime and anywhere on their mobile phones as soon as possible. This would save them the trouble of running around. He also wanted to take over the Platinum Hotel's market in advance. Link knew that the Military Intelligence Division's appearance was a drastic change to the Platinum Hotel. Although Derek looked down on cannon fodder players for the time being, as the players grew stronger, Derek would lower his status and take the initiative to recruit them. In his previous life, the Platinum Hotel had waited for Inhumans to come and join them. This time, Link's military intelligence was even more impressive. He had the support of the Shandu military and government. It was definitely better than the shady assassins and bounty hunters. Now that the Platinum Hotel had lost their only advantage, when the Military Intelligence Department became more and more popular, Derek would definitely not sit still. In the past 3 months, even though the Platinum Hotel had issued a wanted order with the highest reward, no assassins had actually taken the initiative to cause trouble for Link. On one hand, Link controlled almost half of the Sand City's businesses. He was the Lord of the Slums, one of the 5 military council members, and an elder of the Moon Shadow Council. Once he attacked, he would be surrounded by the 3 forces, and the losses would outweigh the gains. On the other hand, the Platinum Hotel did not dare to face them head-on. After all, the Platinum Hotel in Chitu had taken 20 years to build. If they failed to kill him, the Platinum Hotel in Chitu would have to face Link's wrath. It was not worth it to exchange one person for an important stronghold of the Platinum Hotel. For the past 3 months, the Platinum Hotel and Link had maintained a subtle tacit understanding. But now, Link had made the first move, and his first move was a fatal one. All that was left was to wait for Platinum Hotel's response. After Link finished his work, the treasure-hunting mouse ran into the room from the balcony. It grabbed Link's pants and climbed into his palm. Waves are back. Link reached out to stroke the treasure-hunting mouse's fur. The treasure-hunting mouse rolled around in Link's palm. Ever since Link had planted the Tree of God, Noxie, and taken over the castle, the treasure-hunting mouse had been playing with the 5 mice brothers all day. Moreover, the treasure-hunting mouse was Link's first pet. Although it was not very powerful, it was the most senior and had become the overlord of the Weeping Valley. Moreover, during this period of time, treasure-hunting mouse and the 5 mice had been moving a lot of things back and forth, filling up a room of more than 20 square meters in the basement. It was like a small team of scavengers. Link even went to the room to take a look. He rummaged around and found that they were basically from the Gobian Desert. Some of them were the remains of the victims of desert earth dragons or wild beasts, and some were the remains of the machinery faith in Chitu in the desert battlefield more than 20 years ago. The desert won't be peaceful for a while, so you'd better stay in the Weeping Valley. If I find out that you left the valley without permission, you'll be in trouble. Link even pulled treasure-hunting mouse's ear as he spoke, his threat obvious. The treasure-hunting mouse kneeled in Link's palm, its 2 paws pressed together. Its black, grain-like eyes flickered with a pleading light. It looked extremely pitiful. However, Link was not soft-hearted this time. He warned seriously, "You're only allowed to move around in Weeping Valley, do you hear me?" The treasure-hunting mouse nodded and made a jotting gesture with its little paw. It then pointed to its chest and little head, indicating that it had remembered everything, both mentally and mentally. Link flicked the treasure-hunting mouse's head and smiled. "All right, go on." The treasure-hunting mouse let out a breath of turbid air, and the fat on its belly was squeezed into 2 layers at a speed visible to the naked eye. He had finally passed the test and could finally heave a sigh of relief. The treasure-hunting mouse jumped out of Link's grasp and was about to run off to meet up with the 5 mice on the balcony when it suddenly stopped. "What's the matter?" he asked. Asked Link. The treasure-hunting mouse pointed at the office door, then rubbed its 2 little hands back and forth in a panic, and its body twisted. Link finally understood. He waved at the treasure-hunting mouse, signaling that it could leave. However, the treasure-hunting mouse was taking small steps, its chubby shoulders shaking, and a smiling face could be vaguely seen from the side. The emoji is as follows. He pulled the corner of the curtain with one hand and looked like he didn't want to go out. He was going to stay and watch the show. Link's brows furrowed. He crossed his hands in front of his chest and leaned back in his executive chair, confronting the treasure-hunting mouse. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, there was a rhythmic knock on the door. "President, are you there?" Link didn't reply. He continued to confront the treasure-hunting mouse. Finally, the smile on the treasure-hunting mouse's face disappeared. It let go of the curtain and heaved a sigh of relief. It then slipped away from the balcony. "Don't play tricks with me," Link said in a low voice. The treasure-hunting mouse turned around and started ranting at Link to vent its dissatisfaction. "You don't even have the chance to gossip. Do you still have the right to be a mouse?" After saying that, she jumped off the balcony in a huff. This time, she really left. After the treasure-hunting mouse left, Link turned his chair around and tidied his appearance. Come in. The office door slowly opened, and a woman in a smart, beige suit with her hair tied into a ponytail walked in with a pile of documents in her arms. Why are you here? Lin Ke stared at Anna and asked curiously, shouldn't you be working at the TV station building at this time? Anna snorted and glared at Link with resentment. Look at what you're saying. Can't I come here without a job? Anna walked to Link's desk and put down a stack of documents. Besides, I'm here on official business. These documents need your signature. They're all programs that were prepared according to your request. If you think there's no problem after watching them, I can go to Penny for approval after you sign the papers. What? Link was a little surprised. I only gave you a rough idea last time. You're done already? Anna gave Link an affirmative look, as if asking, you're doubting my ability? Take a seat first if you're thirsty, pour yourself some water. I have to take a good look at these few program proposals. Anna did not stand on ceremony. She poured herself a glass of water and sat opposite Link. She held the glass and drank from it, but her eyes were fixed on Link. There was only the sound of Link flipping through the proposal in the room. Link carefully read through the proposals. Just as he was about to say something, he met Anna's eyes. The two of them looked at each other and instantly panicked as if they had been electrocuted. Link immediately looked in that direction. Anna's hand shook a little, and the cup next to her lips was not held firmly. A lot of water directly poured out of her mouth and spilled on her pants. Link immediately stood up and handed Anna some tissues. Thank you. When they took the tissue, their fingers inevitably touched again. A surge of electric current instantly spread from their fingers to the whole body, and an indescribable feeling rippled in their hearts. I'm sorry, I'll go take care of it. After saying that, Anna fled. The sound of high heels in the corridor lingered in Link's ears for a long time. Link rubbed his face and let out a deep breath. When Link was still the leader of his gang, the two of them got along casually and harmoniously. After Link took over the Kylan Hall, he could clearly feel that Anna was more reserved. They also exchanged fewer messages. After Link killed Moros and took over the business in the Sand Capital, he became the new queen. The two couldn't find the relaxed feeling they had when they met. They felt awkward and awkward. However, when Link was preparing for the media department, Anna volunteered herself. From not knowing anything about TV media operations, she was now a capable and confident urban white-collared beauty. She could perfectly complete every task that Lin Ke gave to the media department. Link knew that behind Anna's seemingly relaxed appearance, she must have put in an extraordinary amount of effort. A moment later, Anna returned to the office with a normal expression and entered work mode. President, do you still have any opinions on these business proposals? Link closed the folder and shook his head. These programs have been supplemented quite well, so we just have to follow the plan. At the beginning, I only gave you creativity and requirements, but I didn't expect you to make the program plan so wonderful. I can't wait to see the grand occasion of the show's broadcast. As for the funding, if you have any needs, just let me know. If you have any ideas, just report it to Penny. My request for these programs is that there is no upper limit to their budget. As these programs are targeted at the Inhumans, money is not a problem as long as they can be attracted to watch and form a habit. Link picked up a fountain pen and scribbled on the documents behind the proposals. He handed them to Anna and said, "All right, I'm done here. Next, we can get Penny to transfer the funds to start the project." Anna took the folder and hugged it with both hands. Link was just about to say send her off when he realized that Anna had sat down again with no intention of leaving. "Let's have lunch together." Anna took a deep breath and gathered her courage. Link was stunned. Don't you need to ask Penny for funds?" Anna laughed. "I forgot to tell you. I'll be in charge of the photography and reporting of the villa auction in Shenmue City this afternoon. I'll only return after it's over. Oh, Ying Luo. Link was still in a daze. Then let's eat together, Ying Luo. Chapter 366 A Great Purge in Shandu. The two of them pretended to be calm while eating, talking, and laughing. The macaw was about to chat with Link when it saw him and Anna sitting together. How rare, I didn't expect to see such a scene, the macaw observed carefully while being amazed. It couldn't help but frown, realizing that things weren't as simple as they seemed. The two of them seemed to be communicating smoothly, but from the macaw's perspective, it was like a god's perspective. The back of Link's suit was soaked. Anna looked calm, but her little feet moved a lot under the table, betraying her real panic. The macaw placed the plate in front of it and sat down to eat the melon. This plot was almost like a sadistic idol drama that aired at 8 o'clock at night. The macaw gritted its teeth in anger. It was the new king of the Sand Capital, why was it so embarrassed when it came to love? The other one was obviously very bold when he recommended himself to enter the media group. Why did he keep hesitating and not expose this layer of window paper at the last moment? The two of them wiped their mouths after they finished eating. The previously harmonious atmosphere suddenly fell into silence. It was even a little awkward. I'm done, Anna said after a moment of hesitation. Thank you for your hospitality, President. You're welcome, Link replied with a smile. There are spare rooms in the castle. You can rest for a while. We'll go to Shenmue City together in the afternoon. Anna saw that Link was sitting steadily without any intention of getting up. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "You're not leaving? You can go back first. I'll think about something here." Link made up a random excuse. Was he supposed to say that his back was drenched and that he would be exposed if he stood up? Oh. Anna didn't say much. She just felt that Link was acting strange. His eyes were wandering as if he was hiding something from her. But since he didn't want to say it, he wouldn't ask. Sometimes, a woman's sixth sense should never be underestimated. It was an emotion that was more accurate than advanced divination. When Anna walked past the macaw, she even greeted it. The macaw giggled. It was simply the king of beauty, and the expression on its face expressed its mood vividly. The emoji is as follows. After Anna left, the macaw immediately stood up and snickered as it walked up to Link. It's so rare. I didn't expect the new king of Shandu, the overbearing president, to have a side that no one knows about. If I record this scene, I wonder how much I can sell it for. Link massaged his temples, and his tense body slowly relaxed. I don't know how much it'll sell for, but I do know that a certain someone will have an extra meal for tonight. Also, I think it's time to assign some tasks to the owls of the Divine Tree Noxie. It's not good to eat and sleep on the Divine Tree every day, so they have to make some contributions, right? When the macaw heard this, it placed its wings on its waist and snorted, I'm telling you, Link, don't mess around. The owls were all stupid. If they were sent out, they might be eaten by some fierce bird. Your way of thinking is very dangerous. Seeing that Link had no reaction, the macaw sighed and walked forward. It stretched out its wings and wrapped them around Link, looking like a street gangster. What kind of friendship do you think we have between us brothers? Now, we're going to fall out over such a small matter. There's no need, there's really no need. As the macaw spoke, it picked up half a bottle of red wine on the table and chugged it down. Then, it even turned the bottle upside down, and only a little bit came out. I'll do it, you can do whatever you want. Verb. After the macaw finished drinking, it patted Link's shoulder and walked out in an S-shaped path. Link looked at the back of the macaw and hesitated. This was a bottle of good cellared wine that he had specially opened today. The macaw had drunk hundreds of thousands of yuan in just a few gulps. Link looked at the macaw's back and couldn't help but feel a sense of desolation. It was as if he could already see a parrot that hadn't had any food for a month, complaining about its master's heartlessness. In the afternoon, Link and Anna headed to the city together. The two of them first went to the tower in the center of the city. From here, one could overlook the entire city, taking in the entirety of Shenmue City. It's hard to imagine that this is a city that was just built yesterday. Anna couldn't help but sigh as she took out her camera to record the prosperity and magnificence of Shenmue City. In just a day, there were merchants doing business on the streets of Azurewood City, shopkeepers soliciting customers, as well as an endless stream of mutants in the streets and alleys. There were also tourists who had come from Shandu at the first moment. A city made purely of trees was also very attractive in terms of tourism, not to mention that they could see the beautiful scenery of the godly tree Noxie and the Gobi Desert up close. The short trip was worth it. There were also people from the villages and towns around the Gobi Desert who brought their local specialties and specialties to Shenmue City to sell. Link placed his hands on the railing, feeling the wind blowing from above. He also caught a whiff of Anna's faint fragrance. Anna's long hair fluttered in the wind, like a swaying elf. "Okay, I'm done. I have material for tomorrow's report." Anna waved the camera happily. Link immediately turned to look into the distance and smiled. "Oh, really? That's good. It's almost time, let's go down." He looked at the time. When Link and Anna appeared in the resting hall of the villa, they could already hear the commotion in the auction hall. "President, this is the name list of the teams participating in today's auction. Please take a look." Star Constellation handed the list to Link. Link took a look at the list. It was arranged according to the number of contribution points. The first-ranked team was Miracle. The guild in second place was the Myth. Link also saw the name of the Cha Sha Prophet in the detailed list of members. This unspecialized Liver King had probably been recruited by the Myth Guild. Looks like Lost Mon has some skills. To be able to recruit such a Liver King in the early stages is beneficial to the development of the guild, thought Link. Looking further down, Link found a few more familiar guilds and organizations. World Dragon, Heart of Kalen, Northern Desert Wolf, Friendship. Link raised an eyebrow. He did not expect these guilds to have so many members in the Sand City. They had also played an important role in the construction of the city. The corners of Link's lips curled up slightly. These guilds and organizations were all ranked at the top, so they would definitely have a place in the 10 villas. In the future, he would only need to increase the weight and importance of these guilds, forcing them to move their main forces to Shenmue City. This would greatly accelerate Link's progress in controlling the top 10 guilds. "Alright, you'll be the host. Let's start." Link returned the list to Constellation and turned on the television installed in the lounge. He could clearly see the crowds of players in the front hall. Anna returned to her serious and cold self in front of the TV station staff. Her gentle facial features and cold expression immediately formed a contrast, giving people the feeling of a strong woman. Link sat in his seat and watched as Anna rolled up the program list into a tube and directed the TV staff to set the camera and check the host's script. The entire process was extremely smooth and experienced. Link watched with interest. He suddenly felt that Anna had a different attraction. As Xingziu and the female host went on stage, the bidding officially began. Anna rolled up her sleeves and strode back to the chair beside Link. "Has everything been arranged?" asked Link. Anna's tightly furrowed brows slowly relaxed, and her eyes gradually disappeared. "Yes, it's all arranged. You seemed a little angry just now." Anna quickly rubbed the corner of her eyes and pretended to be relaxed. "It's just a small matter. A staff member messed up today's schedule just now, so I had to settle it at the last minute. I really couldn't tell. The noble lady who used to follow Lola is now the head of a department who can handle sudden situations. That means you're not doing your job well as the president. The media department is no longer the same as it was in the past after integrating all the media resources in Shadow. All the industries under it have found their own position. The current media department's influence and profits were far stronger than they were 3 months ago. And all of this is partly due to me, a noble lady." Anna's tone was firm, but her eyes were waiting for Link's affirmation and praise. Link met Anna's eyes and fell silent for a moment. If I didn't know about your ability, I wouldn't have arranged for you to be one of the CEOs of the media department. Do your best. My ambition is not in a place like Shandu, and your stage will not be limited to this small land in the future. As the two of them conversed, 3 villas had already been auctioned off. The first 3 groups to snatch the villa were the Miracle Guild, the Myth Guild, and the Northern Desert Wolf. This is interesting. The Miracle Guild and the Myth Guild had the highest contribution points, so it was normal for them to be in the top 2. However, Mo Bei Lang's contribution points were ranked 5th, and he had successfully skipped Long Xing Tian and the Heart of Callan, becoming the 3rd group to join. It seemed that Traveling Dragon and Heart of Callan wanted to test the other family's contribution points. They wanted to get the villa at a relatively low price and save some contribution points. Since they could only bid once in each round, they used this opportunity to test the contribution points in the hands of other forces. Although this move was somewhat opportunistic, it could be seen that the 2 guilds had indeed formed a mature system, obtaining the greatest benefits with the smallest price. As for Desert Wolf, who had made a frank bid, he had enjoyed the bonus of joining the guild in advance. Together with Miracle and Myth, after registering, they took the keys and were led to their respective villas by the staff. Among them, the Northern Desert Wolf was a very interesting organization. This organization was formed by a group of Northwest veterans in the real world. They were usually united because of the game. Desert Wolf could not be considered a guild. They relied on the rules and tactics they had learned from the troops to become famous. They were often famous in all sorts of gun battle games and RTS real-time strategy games. This time, the Blue Planet's first gaming pod virtual simulation game Fate was in open beta, so this group of Mobei Wolves naturally wanted to join in the fun. As soon as he entered the game, he realized that the game was completely different from the mouse and keyboard from before. They also realized that the military boxing and fighting techniques in real life were actually useful in the game. So, this group of tough men all chose the pugilist course. Whether it was an errand or a battle mission, they could be completed quickly, accurately, and ruthlessly. Everyone was led to their respective villas, and the staff of the villa area in Shenmue City introduced them. The villa covers an area of 180 square meters, with 4 floors above ground and 2 floors below ground. There's also a 200 square meter small garden on the ground floor of the villa. It's designed to be high in the front and low in the back. There's even a swimming pool on the 2nd underground floor. However, no one was paying attention to the staff's introduction at this time. Everyone was attracted by the grand layout, luxurious decoration, and complete facilities of the villa in front of them, and their eyes were fixed on it. The Miracle Guild's club was also in the villa area. For members who were used to living in villas, there should not have been too many surprises. But now, all of them were as happy as children, running up and down the villa. "Boss, this is not bad. There's a huge conference room on the 1st underground floor, enough for us to hold our meetings. There are also many rooms upstairs. I've calculated that there are 10 rooms of all sizes that can be stayed in. There are 2 suites among them. If I get someone to modify them, I can make 14 rooms. There are no rules on accommodation in the villa. When the time comes, everyone in the Miracle Guild can log off in the villa. It'll be much safer." The same scene was happening in several villas at the same time. Meanwhile, in the resting hall of the villa's exhibition hall, Anna, who had just finished filming, said goodbye to Link and was about to leave. "Wait," Link suddenly called out. The staff members around Anna all showed an expression of understanding and hurriedly left in a group to make a copy for the president and their superiors. When Anna had joined the TV station, everyone vaguely remembered the rumors about Anna and Link in the newspapers. During the 3 months that Anna had joined, he hadn't seen any inclination. Could the rumors be true? Everyone was ecstatic. Anna glanced at the staff and turned to explain to Link awkwardly, "They're just blindly jeering, don't take it to heart. Are you planning to use Shenmue City and the villa auction as the main news tomorrow?" Link asked with both hands in his pockets. Anna was taken aback. She didn't expect Link to not respond at all. She was a little glad, but also a little disappointed. Yes, I want to change the attitude of the residents of Shandu toward inhumans through this. Then I suggest that you put it off for a day, said Link after a moment of silence. Why? Are you worried about exposing something? Said Link, shaking his head. No, it's that there'll be a bigger piece of news tonight that's more suitable to be the headline. I don't want the news that you've been following all day to be drowned out and ignored. Anna's eyes sparkled as she pointed at herself and said, So, are you showing concern for me now? After he subconsciously said that, his expression suddenly changed, and his sense of profession took over his rationality. There's going to be even bigger news tonight. The corners of Link's lips curled up slightly, and he said in an unquestionable tone, because tonight, there will be a great purge in Sand City. P.S. Finally, a million words. You're praising yourself here. You're amazing. Chapter 367 The Threat of the Machinery Faith. Anna's pupils contracted violently, and she said in a surprised tone, A great purge. Yes, a great purge against various extreme forces in Shandu. Anna recovered her expression after a moment. As a media staff with a keen sense of smell, she knew the importance of this news. Then I'll release this information later. By the way, thank you for telling me in advance. I'll treat you to a meal next time. Anna smiled, waved her hand, and left. Link watched as Anna and the TV station staff joked as they left, and the corners of his mouth curled up. The Newman's canary was capable of holding her own now. Compared to the naive fairy from before, Anna's image in Link's eyes was more concrete and full. Her character was more complicated, and she was more charming. The 1-month auction for the right to use the villa had ended, but for the players, it was just the beginning. The guild club system was mature and had a complete set of advertising methods. Immediately, a guild player recorded a video of the villa and posted it on the Wasteland forum. The players who saw the interior structure of the villa were extremely jealous. There was a swimming pool, a conference room, a recording room, and a garden. There were a total of 6 floors, and the scenery was pleasant. The security service of the community was excellent. Although most players would choose to go offline when they were resting, the sense of accomplishment of having a territory of their own in the game was difficult to express in words. Miracle, Myth, World Dragon, Heart of Callan, Friendship, and Desert Wolf were all well-known guilds and organizations in Huaxia. They had their own ways of advertising. After the video was posted, everyone took the opportunity to do some publicity. Everyone showed off their skills and quickly made it to the top of Weibo's search list. This made the netizens even angrier. Many of them had just received the game cabin and were still in the famine mode of the game. However, the big guilds were already living in the villa. It was a huge difference, and it was infuriating. Since Fate was officially in open beta, the virtual world built in the game attracted many netizens who were not interested in the game. In addition, there was the news that Money Man Punch had sold 500,000 game coins and became a millionaire overnight. This made many people think of doing a part-time job in the game. Taking out 3 to 4 hours a day to play the game was equivalent to half a day in the game. The money earned from completing missions could be put up for sale in the bank's exchange system. All sorts of factors pushed Fate to become the most popular game on the Blue Planet. Weibo's trending searches were filled with game-related searches every day, to the point that Weibo had to consider whether to set up a separate trending search list for Fate. The publicity department was in charge of publicity. At this moment, the players in the villa were already in a heated discussion and had begun to discuss official business. In the Miracle Guild's villa, in the conference room, including me and King Gozhung, we have accepted a total of 7 missions from the Military Intelligence Department. King Gozhung and I will complete our own missions. You will form groups of 4 and return to the Military Intelligence Department to submit your mission. If you find someone else accepting the same mission while you're doing it, you must complete the mission before the other party, or else the night's time will be wasted. The elite members stood on the left and right of the long table. At this moment, they guaranteed, "Don't worry, guild leader. We have the level advantage now, and we're all wearing the same equipment. We're also in groups of 4. If we still can't complete the quest, we might as well chop off our heads and kick them around like balls." As soon as he said that, the others all laughed. Equipped with standard equipment and having successfully cleared the hotel gunfight instance dungeon twice, the elite members of Miracle felt that they could do it again. Moreover, the firepower of a 4-man team was extremely strong. They could even take down a small gang in the slums. Wouldn't it be easy to capture the spies of the extremist forces? Wind-chasing Wolf sat at the front of the long table. Looking at the elite members full of energy, he said, "You're in good condition, but I still want to say, don't underestimate the enemy because of this. This is your first D-rank mission. It's not that you're not strong enough to be in a group of 4, but that you'll first experience the difficulty of a D-rank mission. After you've familiarized yourself with it, you can do the mission alone. In addition, in a game like Destiny, the plot and missions aren't static. There are many sudden changes. I believe that you have all experienced this when you were transporting goods to Shenmue City." The elite members nodded in unison. It was originally a quest to transport goods, but due to the sudden attack of the Desert Earth Dragon and the sudden appearance of the Earth Dragon King, the system had changed it to a survival quest. This was the so-called dynamic nature of the game, where anything was possible. Zui Feng got up and placed his hands on the table. His body leaned forward with a lot of pressure. "Finally, I would like to emphasize that after you accept the mission, you will only have the characteristics of the spy in your hands. During the process of carrying out the mission, do not kill by mistake or involve the spy." Once such a situation occurred, not only would they not be able to obtain any contribution points, but they would also be deducted, including the reputation points of the Military Intelligence Division. Therefore, you must analyze it accurately and think twice before you act. The elite member's confident face also showed a trace of seriousness, and his little tail was pressed back down by wind. "Goes Hung, we won't say much. Do as you see fit. I'm confident in your strength." After Zui Feng finished explaining, he clapped his hands and motioned for everyone to look over. Those who need to repair their equipment, replenish their ammunition, or purchase emergency tools, go and prepare now. We'll meet at Shenmue City's train station in an hour, and return to the Sand Capital for our mission. With Wind's order, the elite members got up and left the villa. They started to replenish their supplies in groups of 4. As the sun set past Shenmue City and gradually disappeared from the desert horizon, the group took a special train and left Shenmue City. In the car, the Miracle Guild led by the King of Leftover Dogs had coincidentally met the Myth Guild led by Lost Mo Wen. As soon as the two sides met, they knew each other's movements. Lost Mo Wen got up from his seat and sat in the empty seat next to the King of Dog Leftovers. "Why don't I see your president?" The top 10 guilds in China didn't really deal with each other. After all, they were all competitors in the game. However, compared to the Shrine Guild, which was their mortal enemy, their relationship with the Myth Guild was much more peaceful. There had not been much friction between them before. In addition, Miracle's popularity in the game was far ahead. Their only goal was to catch up with World Dragon, so the smell of gunpowder between them was not so strong. The guild master has something to attend to, so he went back early. Goes Hung King turned around and said. Lost Mo Wen glanced at the equipment of the Miracle Guild's elite members with envy. He did not know if he was lamenting or ridiculing them. "I really envy your guild. You have so much money to buy so much equipment. Our guild is in a bad state, we're all wearing street clothes." Goes Hung King's expression did not change, like an emotionless talking machine. The Mythology Guild's sponsorships and endorsements rank 6th among the top 10 guilds. They're considered average. According to the income and expenditure situation announced last year, the overall profit trend had the potential to rise. Guild leader Mon is looking for the wrong person to complain about being poor in front of me. Lost Mon shrugged his shoulders helplessly. *CK. I shouldn't have chatted with a data fanatic. Lost Mon stood up and patted King Gushen's shoulder. Let's rely on our own abilities for the operation tonight. Lost Mon and the members of the Myth Guild had gone through 2 dungeons and some errands. They had finally reached level 10 before the auction today. When he went to the military intelligence department to accept the mission, Lost Mon realized that there were not many missions to choose from at level 10. Moreover, each mission would indicate the number of times it had been accepted so that players could clearly see the popular and unpopular missions. At the same time, they could avoid risks and save time. Lost Mon looked around and realized that many of the suitable missions had a limit to how many times they had been accepted. There was no need to think about it. At the moment, the only ones who could reach level 10 first were the closed beta players in Sand City, some determined players, and people from the major guilds. Only a few closed beta players went into the desert to carry out destruction and assassination missions within the city. The big guilds were surprisingly consistent in their choices. They did not covet the desert missions with high experience and rewards. Instead, they turned to the deep farming mission in Shandu. They first tried the mission of finding spies and stopping destruction to see how strong the D-rank mission was. In short, tonight's Sand City would be the stage for the big guilds to compete. There would definitely be a collision during the mission, and the probability was not small. This would depend on the number of players in each guild, whether the planning of the quest route was reasonable, and the speed of the quest. When the bus arrived at the station in the slums, the players on the bus swarmed out and quickly disappeared into the night. Weeping Valley, Howling Castle. Link was also waiting for the news of the players' victory. Shadowt was much stronger than he had imagined. All the information about the spy mission was provided by the Shadowt for free. According to Dai Yi's words, the relationship between the intelligence agents of the special forces and the extremists who had infiltrated Shandu was like a cat catching a mouse. While the cat was constantly looking for the mouse was also trying to find a way to hide. Although Tico had found a lot of information, due to the lack of manpower, they could not effectively strike against the complex and numerous enemies. Often, the moment they made a move, the other spies would scatter like birds and beasts, causing the other collected information to be ineffective. In addition, with the current military committee system in Shandu, the most important trump card in each commander's hand was their own troops, so they were naturally more cautious in their style of doing things. The famous big boss of the express delivery industry, Mr. Chong, had once said, "To resist foreign aggression, one must first stabilize the internal situation." Just this sentence alone was enough to make Link agree. Only by removing the spies in Shandu, where everything was unknown to the desert, could they have a deterrent effect. If the two armies really reached the stage of confrontation and the spies in Shandu created chaos at the critical moment to stab Link in the back, then he would really be attacked from both sides. Link stood on the balcony, waiting for news. In the garden, the treasure-hunting mouse was doing obstacle training with the 5 mice. The rubber python, the illusion vine, the water arrow turtle, the invisible killer bee, the obsidian vanguard, the black widow, and the sand eagle were all gathered together to increase the difficulty of the training. Link watched as the Rat Secret Service squad nimbly dodged all sorts of attacks and pursuits, relying on their cooperation to break through the obstacles. With a whistle in its mouth, the treasure-hunting mouse stood on top of King Kong's head as a coach. It would chirp from time to give pointers to the Rat Secret Service team. It had to be said that during this period of time, the treasure-hunting mouse had been leading the 5 mice to explore the desert every day. The 5 mice were now in sync with each other. Although they still looked the same, their movements were much more agile. Moreover, their cooperation with each other had also improved. They could already use multiple fusion skills or combo skills, which was an eye-opener. Just then, Link's phone rang. As soon as he picked up, he heard a trembling voice on the other end of the phone. "Chief, the first batch of Inhumans has successfully completed their missions. 31 missions have been approved to be cancelled, 35 terrorists of extremist organizations hidden in Shandu have been successfully killed, and 3 terrorist activities targeted at Shandu have been successfully stopped. At this moment, the military intelligence officer in charge of reporting was shaking. This man, who used to be an intelligence officer in Shako, had a better understanding of the difficulty of completing missions than people from other departments. These missions had been piled up in the special forces for a long time, but they had not been carried out because of the lack of manpower. The intelligence agent was not optimistic about the Inhumans' strength. Although their strength barely met the mission's standards, these Inhumans were noisy and had unstable personalities. One look and you could tell that they were not cut out for intelligence. Forget about completing the mission successfully, it was already a blessing that they didn't scare these spies away. However, Commander Dai Yi naturally had his reasons for transferring him to the military intelligence department. He was also very diligent in his post. However, he did not expect that a large group of outlanders would return with human heads that night and give him a hard slap in the face. Many old crimes had been solved, and as many as 31 missions had been verified and verified. This kind of efficiency really shocked him. These Inhumans successfully received their own rewards after completing the mission. He had thought that they would take a break after the night's battle, but he did not expect that the first thing they would do was to accept a mission. Looking at the unconcealed excitement on the Inhumans' faces, the staff member could not help but feel a chill down his spine. The Inhumans were all discussing how they wouldn't have died just now, and what skills they had mastered. Just because they didn't die, they used these dangerous missions as a way to improve their combat strength. This group of people were simply a group of perverts. After a large group of Inhumans left after accepting the mission, the deputy director of the military intelligence office immediately called his superior Link to report the good news. Link had already expected this. The players did not really die in the game, which was the biggest advantage of the fourth calamity. The Inhumans are very enthusiastic about missions, mainly due to the generous rewards given to the military intelligence department and their sense of identity. Next, we have to grasp these 2 points and strive to formulate more missions based on Commander Dai's plan. Yes. Just as the office's deputy director was about to hang up the phone, the door was suddenly knocked open. A staff member in military uniform ran in anxiously. Deputy Director, urgent news. There's an Inhumans on the front line of the desert and they've found something important. Link furrowed his brows and his heart skipped a beat. Tell me, what's the situation? The associate chief physician was also getting anxious. The Inhumans frontline scouts have discovered that the Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang have formed an alliance and are working day and night to build fortifications in the desert. Chapter 368 Project Starlink. Wang. The associate chief physician's face turned pale when he heard the news, and he fell back into his chair. On the other end of the line, Link frowned. After a moment, he said, "Let him report to me personally." The deputy director quickly brought the phone to the staff and gestured for him to speak directly to Lin Ke. Knowing that the person on the other end of the phone was his superior Link, the staff member gulped nervously. Link could hear the staff's uneasiness from the microphone and comforted them, "Don't be nervous, tell me all the information the Inhumans have gathered at the front line." Lin Ke returned to his office from the balcony and sat on the boss's chair, waiting for the report from the staff. "Sir, a mutant has accepted a mission to investigate at the front line." When he came back to verify the mission, he brought back first-hand news from the Gobi. According to the Inhumans, they found the Mechanical Zealot and the Wasteland Gang's mercenaries building watchtowers and blockhouses in the desert. Based on what this mutant had detected, this cooperation was no longer a small scale. He could see the Wasteland Gang's trucks and all kinds of construction machinery from the Machinery Faith. This Inhumans even used the recording equipment we gave out to record the situation, and then exported the video data and sent it to the officer as soon as possible. "It seems like the Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang have joined forces," Link instructed. The situation is not optimistic. At the same time, increase the investigation and destruction of the Gobi Desert. Try to hinder their actions before we figure out what is going on. Yes. Link heaved a sigh of relief after he hung up. In his previous life, the Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang had their own camps, and there were many conflicts between them. In this life, because of him, the butterfly that flapped its wings, the situation in Sand City changed greatly. The Machinery Faith and Wasteland Gang south of the Sand City also felt a lot of pressure. They actually joined forces. This was something Link did not expect. It seemed that because of his appearance, the timeline had also been distorted. Not long after, Link received a compiled report in his military mailbox. In the video, the construction project in the desert was in full swing. The lights lit up the scene as if it was daytime. In addition to the zealots wearing exoskeleton armors, there were many mercenaries of the Wasteland Gang in camouflage suits and half-covered masks. Both sides commanded the construction of the fortifications together and patrolled the area together. There were quite a number of zealots and wasteland mercenaries in the video, at least 20 to 30 people. After watching the video, Link opened the analysis file from the Military Intelligence Division. It stated that the two sides were building a kind of lifting heavy fire bunker. With a life support system, the pillboxes would usually descend to the water level of the Gobi Desert. Once it detected a threat approaching, it would rise from the ground to suppress and stop the enemy. Furthermore, with the technology of the Machinery Faith, there would definitely be a network connection between the forts. When one of the forts entered an attack state, the other forts would also receive the message or maintain a link. According to the analysis file, the connected bunkers not only had defense functions but also communication functions, so the order from the floating mech city could appear in any corner of the desert. Once the communication network was complete, Link and John's plan to attack the city would fail. He was afraid that he would be detected by the enemy the moment he entered the desert and be exposed to the enemy's tight defense system. Although this was only the analysis of the Military Intelligence Division based on the videos they had captured, Link knew that their deduction was close to the mark. In his previous life, the players had often fought guerrilla warfare near the Goria Grand Canal, and the Machinery Faith had been forced to build similar lifting bunkers on both sides of the canal, with great results. In this life, with the help of the Wasteland Gang, the Machinery Faith's ambition was obviously even greater. They were prepared to cover the entire desert with bunkers and build an iron wall that even sand could not break through. In the report, the Military Intelligence Division gave this lifting bunker and link project a very high evaluation and a very high threat level. Once the Machinery Faith was built, the Sand City would face the fate of being sealed off. The Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang could attack the desert at any time, but their own team could only passively defend and had no way of entering the desert. The rhythm of the war had completely fallen into the hands of the other party, which was extremely passive for Shandu. Link read to the end of the report. The name of the scout was Bombarding Chicken. Link furrowed his brows. The name seemed familiar. He seemed to have seen it somewhere before. After thinking for a long time, Link's brows finally relaxed. He remembered who this explosive chicken was. This guy was the first player that he had tricked into choosing the druid in St. Maria's Cathedral in Shadu that day. At night, he was also the one who led more than a dozen players to join the God Tree of Noxie. In the process of building the God Tree of Noxie, he had put in a lot of effort and also obtained the most benefits. He was the first person to really try the crab. I didn't expect him to be the first to enter the desert to do the scouting mission. Link was surprised. A druid who didn't mingle with the divine tree in the Sand City and went to the desert alone. Thinking back to the last time this guy had led a group of people across the Gobi at night, he had actually retreated unscathed twice. She didn't know if this guy was bold or lucky. After reading the report, Link immediately gave orders to the Military Intelligence Division. While the purge in Shandu continues, increase the investigation work. At the same time, arrange more ambushes, destruction, and guerrilla missions. We must hinder the enemy's plan and break the blockade of Shandu by the extremist forces. After arranging the work, Link looked at the time. It was almost midnight. After some consideration, Link called Benjamin and gave him a new mission. Benjamin, inform the 4 commanders that we are having an emergency meeting at the military region as soon as you get to work tomorrow morning. Benjamin was stunned for a moment. Emergency meeting? What happened? I can't explain it over the phone. You'll know at the meeting tomorrow. Link knew that if he were to tell Benjamin the whole story now, he would not be able to sleep tonight. Okay, I'll remember that. I'll contact the secretaries of the other commanders and give them a heads up. Not only was Benjamin the deputy battalion commander of the Shita Special Forces, but he was also Link's secretary in the military's external communications. You've worked hard. Brother Lin, what are you saying? Isn't this part of my job? Benjamin and Link exchanged a few words before they hung up the phone at the same time. After that, Link fell into deep thought. The game's open beta had only started half a month ago, but the plot and situation were already like wild horses that had been out of control, and it was a little hard to pull them back. The alliance between the Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang was beyond Link's expectations. Originally, Link had even planned to keep putting pressure on the Machinery Faith and flirt with the Wasteland Gang, creating a dog-eat-dog situation. He would let the two sides fight each other, and then he would come out and reap the benefits. He just didn't expect the two to hook up so quickly. The reason was obvious. The Sand City under Link's control was a huge threat. All of its actions made the desert forces feel threatened. Link had to take the blame for this. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Should it be said that he was now strong enough to influence the situation on Wasteland Planet, or was it that his life was failing, and he had to face the alliance of the Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang just as he was about to achieve his great ambitions? Lin K opened a well-hidden document on his computer. After thinking for a moment, he also entered the name of Bombarding Chicken. If one looked closely, they would find that the names recorded in the document were all famous players. Drifting Row, Thief Lien Gren, Dragon Rance, Eat Lemons When Hungry, Lost Mo Wen, Ye Yeo Ling, Lang Feng, Tangju, Lang Lang. These players were all extremely famous players on Wasteland Planet in his previous life. On one hand, they were almost all guild leaders of large guilds. On the other hand, they were all outstanding players in their respective classes. There's no need to say more about the first few. I believe everyone is already very familiar with each other. Ye Yeo Ling was the vice president of the Kallenheart Guild. In his previous life, he had taken a genetic mutation potion and activated his rare telekinesis talent. He had also combined telekinesis with pugilist to create a unique scion game, which had made him famous for a time. Lang Feng was the leader of the Northern Desert Wolf, a retired Special Forces soldier. It was rumored that he had participated in an anti-mercenary mission at the Chinese border, fighting the pirates of Mali alone, and annihilating a transnational criminal organization with his own strength. He was known as the War Wolf. In the game, his profession was also Special Forces, and he managed to bring an obscure profession to the public's attention. Tangju, the president of the Friendship Guild, was a professor in mechanical engineering and automation in reality. In the game, he was the #1 mechanic. Compared to the top few, Bombing Chicken seemed to be unknown. At the very least, Link had never heard of this name in his 6 years of gaming. However, for now, this guy was quick-witted, had a unique way of thinking, and the key was that he had good luck. It was worth nurturing. After tricking so many players into choosing druids, if he didn't introduce a star player, where would he put his face? At this time, the burping chicken wrapped in linen sniffled and headed towards the desert again in the cold night wind. After completing the D-rank reconnaissance mission alone, he had a full 5,000 experience points and 1k wasteland gold coins as a reward. Ever since he had experienced the sweetness of the mission, he was no longer willing to work with others. He was now level 12, and he needed 10100 experience points to level up to level 13. He had received half of the experience points from a D-rank mission, so he could level up directly after 2 trips. If he were to complete this with other players, he would only get 2500 experience points after working hard for half a day. It was a huge loss. The cold wind was bone-piercing. The whistling sand suddenly hit his cheeks, and he felt a needle-like pain. Bombarding Chicken clutched the linen cloth that was dancing in the wind tightly and walked toward the light source in the distance. The reason why Bombarding Chicken was the first to complete the reconnaissance mission was also because of this linen. The light green grade was the bonus reward he received from the gunfight hotel dungeon. It had a certain concealment and disguise effect. As long as one covered their body with this piece of linen, they would look like a rock from a distance. It would blend in well with the desert and would be very confusing. Very quickly, the bomb chicken arrived at another bunker that was under construction. There were 9 tents set up around it, and each tent had a light on. In the bunker under construction in the Gobi, 3 zealots of the machinery faith were operating the machines. Near the camp, 3 wasteland gang mercenaries in military coats were patrolling with guns. Bombarding Chicken crawled forward while wrapped in linen. At the same time, he activated the skill tracking humanoid creatures and instantly marked the enemy's specific location on the system map. After finding a good spot, Bomb Chicken took out the camera he had been given when he accepted the mission and began to record the construction of another bunker in the cold wind. Seeing that the available shooting time of the equipment was gradually decreasing, Fried Chicken could not help but grin, as if the experience points were close at hand. He was now level 12, the number 1 druid player in the Sand City. Due to his outstanding performance in the construction of the Divine Tree Noi and Shenmue City, many druid NPCs had already remembered this druid in humans with strange names. Furthermore, there was another secret to Bomb Chicken. While he was chatting with an elite druid, he had accidentally activated his class advancement mission. Others might not know, but at the very least, Bombing Chicken had been following the forum every day and had not seen anyone mention the profession change on the forum. There were definitely some players who had received the class change mission and kept it a secret, but according to his observation, most of the players had not received the class change mission. The Druid's class advancement mission was to advance, and choose one of the specializations from the various basic skills to learn in depth. Placate wild beasts, natural rage, human-like creature tracking, nerve-breaking roar. The 4 initial skills each had a corresponding mastery. Beast taming, nature magic, tracking, and transformation. Bombshell had chosen to transform. His ultimate dream was just like his game ID. He hoped that he could transform into a raptor in the future and become a bombshell that could fly in the sky. Explosive Chicken's gut-breaking roar had already reached level 8. He only needed to level up 2 more times to meet the class advancement requirement. Therefore, this mission was not to level up, but to level up skills. As the storage of the recording equipment was full, the equipment shut down automatically. Bomb Chicken's heart also took flight. Now, as long as he took the equipment back to Muye's military intelligence office, he could receive 5,000 experience points. With these 5,000 experience points I'm left with only 1,000 or so experience points to level up Roar to level 10. I'll go back to the gunfight at the Hotel Instance dungeon and get enough experience. Bomb Chicken tried his best to suppress the excitement in his heart. Just as he was about to take the time to slip away, the sound of metal breaking suddenly came from the construction site. The Bombarding Chicken took a closer look and realized that the concrete mixer had stopped working due to a malfunction. From his position, he could still see black smoke rising from it, which was blown away by the whistling wind as soon as it rose into the air. Then, a conversation at the construction site could be heard in the wind. The mixer truck is out of order. We don't have spare parts, so we can't proceed with the construction of the bunker. Are there any other construction teams around? Let's see if we can borrow a spare part. This Star Chain project was decided by the higher UPS together. Neither you nor I can bear the cost of delaying the completion of the project. Then we can only search through the night. Quick, wake up the people in the tent and spread them out to the nearby construction points to borrow spare parts." When Bombarding Chicken heard this, his 2 ears perked up like radar. The Star Chain project and the parts borrowed from nearby teams. Suddenly, a bold idea came to his mind. Chapter 369 An All-Out War. The next day, as soon as the sun started rising, Link was ready to head to the military. The car had only driven a few steps when Link suddenly saw 3 military intelligence personnel running towards them. "Stop the car!" The car carrying Link slowly came to a stop. Lin Ke rolled down the car window and saw the Deputy Director of the Military Intelligence Office, Ren Yi, running over with 2 staff members. "Division Chief, there's a piece of information that has just been sent back from the front line. Please take a look." Ren Yi gasped and said. Link was still curious as to what kind of information would make the Military Intelligence Department staff so anxious to deliver it to him during his meeting. Opening the craft paper bag, Link saw a document that was related to the mission. Behind the document was a construction blueprint and a plan. Link's pupils contracted. He raised his head and asked, "Who brought this back?" Ren Yi said, "It's still the same mutant from last night." After the first investigation mission verification was completed, he took another mission before leaving. He just returned to the Military Intelligence Office half an hour ago to verify the mission. "I saw the extra information he brought back and felt that we should inform you as soon as possible." Link recovered from his shock and nodded. "Well done. It just so happens that I have to go to the military committee for a meeting, and this information is strong evidence of the alliance between the Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang. As for the Inhumans who turn in the quest, you will temporarily give them 1.5 times the reward. After we verify the authenticity of this proposal, we will give you an additional reward." "All right, I'll get it done." This was the first time Ren Yi had a detailed discussion with Link. From Link's actions, speech, and logic, Ren Yi could tell that he was a meticulous boss. If it was him, his first reaction would be ecstasy. With this plan, it was equivalent to knowing the detailed coordinates of the bunker in the Gobi Desert. As long as he launched a precise attack, he could destroy the bunker. However, after the ecstasy, another idea came to Ren Yi's mind unconsciously. What if the plan in his hand was deliberately leaked to them by the enemy? Wouldn't they suffer heavy losses if they deliberately lured them into the trap? Therefore, on the way here, Ren Yi thought that if this new boss was greedy for achievements and acted rashly, he would give him a subtle reminder. He didn't think that Link would improve steadily after reading the information. He didn't even need to remind him. "You've worked hard. You've stayed up all night. Go back and rest early after you're done." Ren Yi immediately saluted, straightened his back and said in high spirits, "It's not hard to work for the division chief." Ren Yi and the other 2 watched as Link's car drove away. Only when they left the Crying Valley did Ren Yi put down the arm that he used to salute. Ren Yi tidied up his clothes that were wrinkled from running, turned around and said to his 2 subordinates, "Let's go. There are still many important things waiting for us to do." In the car, Link flipped through the entire report again. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. He had just added the name Bombarding Chicken to the document last night, and this guy had given him such a big gift today. He was really worthy of his admiration. In the mission report, there was a detailed description of the theft of the document by Bombing Chicken. The staff member asked, "How did you think of stealing the plan's documents?" "Bombarding Chicken, I was about to leave after recording the video, but then their concrete mixer malfunctioned. I heard them saying that it had to be completed on time and that they were talking about the Star Chain plan. In the end, I decided to spread out to the surrounding construction sites to look for spare parts. I think this might be an opportunity." Staff member, "So, how did you manage to sneak into the camp and steal the document?" "Explosive Chicken, as everyone knows, I'm a druid. Tracking humanoid creatures is one of my abilities. In addition, I have some small items to hide from the enemy's line of sight. This way, I avoided the camp guards and entered the tent smoothly. I didn't dare to rummage through the tent for a long time, so when I saw some documents, I took them out. I didn't expect to find them so accurately, spread out hands. Bombing chicken, so, the information I brought back is useful, right? Would the mission reward be higher? Staff member, I can only pay according to the reservation reward for the time being. As for the additional reward, I have to ask my superior. Please wait a moment. This guy's luck is really good. As he spoke, Link flipped open the Star Chain project plan. It detailed the coordinates of each fortress, as well as the time of construction and completion. Take the plan in Link's hand for example. This team was responsible for the construction of 10 bunkers with a deadline of 15 days. This was definitely a difficult task. The last 2 pages of the plan were filled with digital coordinates. Link glanced at them and counted. There were at least 200. Just imagine the road from Crying Valley to the Grand Canal, with more than 200 bunkers all over the place. What kind of concept was that? Moreover, this was not an ordinary heavy firepower bunker. This was a communication network node, a logistics supply station, and an ammunition warehouse. It was an offensive and defensive position with many functions. Once the Star Chain project was successful, it would be almost impossible for the Sand City to touch the desert with its current strength. On the contrary, the Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang had the ability to attack Shandu at any time, and they could attack and retreat at will. After reading the entire plan in detail, Link's heart tightened. The Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang had obviously come prepared this time. The entire construction period was compressed and extremely tight, wanting to complete the entire project as quickly as possible. Fortunately, Bombing Chicken had found the plan in advance. Otherwise, the Sand City would have been in a passive position. President, we've arrived at the military region. The black car stopped steadily in front of the solemn military building, and soldiers immediately came up to welcome them. The moment Link got out of the car, he saw Benjamin. Have the commanders been informed? As he spoke, he handed the information to Benjamin. They're already on their way, but they've been complaining a lot. Commander Dai Yi was planning to go on an outing with his child today, but he was informed to change his schedule early in the morning. He probably doesn't look too good. Benjamin said with a smile. Link imagined Dai Yi's eagle-nosed thin face and his low aura of resentment. He couldn't help but laugh. Commander Dai was well known in the military for being afraid of his own family. It was inevitable that he would be scolded for changing his schedule at the last minute, so it was impossible for him to be in a good mood. Don't worry, I'll make sure he doesn't have the chance to get angry at me about what we discussed in the meeting today. Benjamin's curiosity had been piqued since yesterday. Now that he had the information, he suddenly stopped in his tracks as he read through it, and his face changed. Brother Lin, is Wanwan telling the truth? Is there a need to be so shocked? Link nodded casually. You're all pale. It's not the first or second day that the Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang have been restless, so it's expected that they'll take action. It had only been 3 to 4 months since Benjamin became a member of the military. Although he had studied a lot of knowledge and theories, he still felt that it was unbelievable when he learned about the Machinery Faith Star Chain project. Hundreds of lifting bunkers were set up in the desert, making it difficult for even the sand to move. Benjamin's jaw almost dropped to the ground. This was not serious. If the Machinery Faith were to occupy the Gobi, it would be difficult to fight their way out in the future. For such an important matter, they should have discussed the countermeasures through the night. Brother Lin was actually so calm and composed. It was as if he would not even bat an eyelid even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. Link and Benjamin arrived at the meeting room. Commander Mun was the first to arrive. He was dozing off on his seat with his eyes closed, and the guard behind him was Li Zijun. Commander, you're here so early? Link asked after he sat down. Commander Mun opened his eyes and let out a deep breath. He adjusted his breathing and said, "It's all because you suddenly called me last night to say that you have a meeting, and then Benjamin came to my room to inform me. I'm the first victim." Link shrugged helplessly. "I clearly told him to contact the commander's secretaries and inform them of the schedule in the morning. You can't blame me for this." As the two of them were conversing, the Air Force commander, Wimbledon, strode in and said with a strong voice, "What are you two talking about? It doesn't look like an emergency meeting." Commander Wimbledon took his seat and opened his hands. The secretary behind him immediately took off the military robe and folded it. The whole process was very open and looked quite heroic. "We'll be able to start the meeting after you two," said Link with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, a voice that seemed to be whispering in his ear came from outside the door. "Mr. Lin, I was going to take my wife and child on an outing today, but you called me. If you don't tell me what's the matter, I won't let you off." Commander Dai sat down with a gloomy face. His pair of dark eyes were like an eagle in the desert that had its eyes on its prey. The army's general, Fernandez, also sat down with a smile, as if he was watching a show. "Now that everyone's here, can you tell me what's the big deal?" Link nodded at Benjamin, who was standing behind him, and motioned for him to put the document on the projector. Soon, the words Star Chain Project appeared on the cover. As Benjamin slowly flipped the pages, Link began to explain the whole story. This plan was stolen by the Inhumans who took the mission when the Military Intelligence Department was carrying out a reconnaissance mission. The enemy camp suddenly had a temporary malfunction, causing the Zealots and the Wasteland Gang mercenaries to scatter to look for accessories. It was also passed to me this morning when I left the house. The commanders, who had been laughing, watching, or glaring, were now sitting upright and looking at the projection screen with extremely serious expressions. It contained the Star Chain Project's blueprint, planning time, construction time, and the final hundreds of predetermined coordinates. It was as if a heavy hammer had hit the four commanders' hearts. Everyone in the conference room except Link turned pale. Even though Benjamin had already read the content in advance, he was still shocked when he read it again. In his eyes, the densely packed coordinate numbers were like impregnable fortresses, quietly displayed above the desert. Countless bunkers were connected together, forming a huge territory of the machinery faith. More than 200 bunkers. In addition to attack power, they also carry out tasks such as communication, material transportation, distribution, and supply. Once they are built in the Gobi Desert, I don't need to say how powerful they will be, do I? Benjamin flipped through the entire Star Chain plan through the projector, and the four commanders were already in a state of shock. However, this was not the end. Link snapped his fingers, signaling Benjamin to input all the coordinates into the computer. Benjamin walked to the computer in the conference room and switched the projector interface to the computer. Then, he quickly entered various coordinates into a map of the Sand City. Soon, red dots appeared on the projector, one after another, and finally filled most of the land between the Weeping Valley and the Goria Grand Canal, forming a large net of red dots, like a bloody mouth that wanted to swallow all the sand. This is the map of the corresponding locations of all the bunkers. Everyone knows the rapacious ambitions of the machinery faith, but I will show you some other content next," said Link as he took out a USB flash drive from his pocket and threw it to Benjamin. There were 2 videos in the USB drive, and Benjamin opened one from last night. The sound system in the conference room was very good. As soon as the video started playing, the sound of the wind came from the sound system. Combined with the dark image and the constantly shaking camera, it created a sense of reality. The 4 commanders frowned slightly. The chaotic scene made them dizzy. After a while, the picture finally stabilized. Accompanied by the howling wind and heavy breathing outside, the campfire lit up the construction site. The light from the night searchlights and the light from the tents were clearly reflected on the curtain. This Bayan. The 4 of them were dumbfounded as they looked at the mechanical zealot building the bunker on the screen. There were also mercenaries of the Wasteland Gang in camouflage suits with half masks. The four commanders' minds buzzed and went blank. The machinery faith had actually joined forces with the Wasteland Gang. The two forces that had been hostile to each other in the past had now joined hands. This was a big problem. After the first video finished playing, Benjamin quickly played the second one. The camera was still shaking, and the wind and breathing sound were like the background music. This time, the scope of the investigation was closer, and he could see more clearly. Dai Yi, the king of special agents of the White Terror Shatitsk, looked at the scout in the video with interest. Mr. Lin, these two surveillance videos should have been made by the same person, right? These two videos are both from the hands of an inhumans called Bombing Chicken. If it weren't for him risking his life to shoot two reconnaissance videos and taking the risk to find the star chain plan, I'm afraid we would still be in the dark. I'm afraid it'll be too late by the time the enemy makes their move. There was a slight change in Dai Yi's expression. He had also sent his men to investigate the inhumans, but they were all noisy and could not meet the standards of an intelligence officer at all. However, the bombarding chicken in the video was able to hide at such a close distance without any training and film first-hand precious information. His strength was evident and he was a good seedling to be an intelligence personnel. Ms. Lin, I want to see Ran. However, before Dai Yi could finish, Link had already guessed what he was going to say. He's a druid who's cultivating in the god tree Noxie. Hearing Link's words, Dai Yi suddenly stopped in the middle of his sentence. After a moment, he sighed, "Ai, what a pity, what a pity." The other party was a druid who cultivated at the Noxie divine tree, so it was definitely impossible for him to be fully loyal to him. Such a person would not dare to accept Shatutko. All right, commanders, after watching the video and the Star Chain project, you should be clear about the situation in Shandu, right? Asked Link. The Mun Kingdom commander slowly returned to his senses and said indifferently, "The current situation is an all-out war." Chapter 370 Conflict on the Ground, Player PvP begins. An all-out war. These four words were deafening. That's right, the Machinery Faith and the Wasteland Gang had joined hands, so their goal must be big. This was clearly a pre-battle preparation. In the past, although the Gobi Desert was the territory of the Machinery Faith, if the Sand City wanted to attack, the Army and Air Force could advance at any time. Once the Machinery Faith took over the desert, all the Sand City could do was to be beaten up. Now is not the time for us to hold our own opinions. We must work together with all our strength, otherwise, even the Sand City will not be safe. The Army Commander, Fernandez, said. The Air Force Commander, Win Layton, also raised his hand. The Air Force is ready. Commander Tekhode leaned forward slightly. All intelligence personnel of the Special Forces are to be on standby 24 hours a day. As soon as you receive an order, immediately rush to the desert and begin the operation to destroy the enemy's front line. Since General Alonso's assassination, the military committee was the only decision that the four of them had reached. Today, they had reached a consensus once again. If they couldn't cast aside their prejudices and join forces, then there was no chance of victory in Sandu. The four of them looked at Link, waiting for the last member's opinion. Although Link was the last to join, his status was higher than anyone else present. No one could ignore him. "Mr. Lin, we've made our stand clear. What do you think?" Link's expression was relaxed. He looked the most natural of the five. There was no sign of fear or anxiety. "I don't think it's necessary to issue a declaration of a decisive battle, right?" The four of them almost suffocated when they heard Link's words. Should he say that Link was too dense, or that he was too good at acting? "Mr. Lin, you don't seem to realize the seriousness of the matter," Commander Dai said. Link raised his hand, signaling for Dai Yi to calm down. He then said, "First of all, the Star Chain project is still in progress. It's far from being completed. According to the Star Chain plan, the current Star Chain plan is only in the beginning stage, and there are still 15 days before it is completed. We have enough time to react. Secondly, it's hard to say whether this star chain plan was really dropped by the enemy or was intended for us to obtain it. We must send out a reconnaissance team to confirm it over and over again before we can send out a large number of troops. If this is a trap by the enemy, then we will definitely be wiped out. Finally, I don't think it's time to send out troops to fight. You've all forgotten about our most powerful weapon. The most powerful weapon. The commanders all frowned. Benjamin's eyes suddenly lit up, and he quickly replied, "Mutant. It's a mutant." "Correct. We can send the Inhumans to the front lines of the desert and destroy the Machinery Faith's underground fortress. The speed of Inhumans reviving is definitely faster than the construction of the bunker," Link replied with a smile. Army Commander Fernandez could not help but wonder, "I've heard that the strength of the Inhumans is very mediocre. Wouldn't it be a waste to rely on their scattered troops to charge into the battlefield? No matter how many there are, I'm afraid they'll all be dead souls under the spear." Link laughed at this and replied, "How about this, let's use facts to judge whether the Inhuman's strength is mediocre or not." Lin Ke looked at the time. It was already past 8 in the morning. It's already 8. Today's newspaper is already on sale. The military must have ordered the newspaper, so get today's newspaper. Li Zijun, who was standing behind the Mun Kingdom's commander, volunteered, "I'll go get it." The four commanders looked at each other, not knowing why Link suddenly wanted today's newspaper. Commander Dai of the Special Forces was silent for a moment before he spoke again. "Does Member Lin want to use the news of the Inhumans building Shenmue City to prove their usefulness? If that's the case, there's no need for that." Dai Yi's news from yesterday was still about the official opening of Shenmue City. As Mystic Wood City was built by the Moon Shadow Council's druids and Inhumans, it would definitely be the headline of the newspaper today. "We'll know when Captain Li brings the newspaper over," said Link with a smile. A moment later, Li Zijun came back with a stack of newspapers. The first thing she did after entering was to distribute the newspapers to the four commanders. She then walked back to the Mun Kingdom's commander with her arms crossed. Her gaze towards Link had changed as she felt that she couldn't see through him anymore. When the commanders got the newspaper and saw the headlines, their expressions changed. This Bayan. The headlines of the newspaper were not about the opening of the city, but about the clean-up of the Sand City. Since last night, there have been dozens of shooting cases in various areas of Shandu. According to the investigation, the attackers were all Inhumans. According to the verification of this newspaper and the relevant departments, the people who were shot were all spies of the desert extremists who were lurking in Shandu. At the same time, the Inhumans have also stopped 5 major terrorist incidents targeting important buildings and densely populated areas in Shandu. According to the relevant departments, this operation is a thunderbolt attack against the desert extremists and a great purge of Shandu. Commander Dai of the Special Forces immediately straightened his back, and it could be seen that he was in high spirits. His eyes were fixed on the newspaper, and he was stunned for a moment before he said, "Mr. Lin, how many documents are left in the Military Intelligence Department regarding the spies in Shandu?" The Special Forces had once created a detailed file for every suspected or confirmed undercover spy. The number of backlog documents was the number of undercover spies. Last night, we solved 80% of the problems, the rest have basically scattered. However, with the Inhumans' characters, as long as there are benefits, they will be able to find them even if they search the entire Shandu. I believe that the entire Shandu will be cleared out soon, and we will no longer have to worry about the problem of spies. At this moment, the expressions of the three commanders turned from gloomy to sunny. The Inhumans had achieved something impressive, which meant that they were indeed useful. The Air Force commander, Wimbledon, who rarely spoke after he sat down, laughed and said, "Commander Dai, the problems that the Special Forces have accumulated for many years have been solved by the Inhumans you looked down on overnight. What do you think?" In the face of Wimbledon's obvious teasing, Dai Yi was not angry, but happy. Seeing this result, the weight in my heart was lifted. In the past, the special forces didn't have enough manpower and couldn't carry out a large-scale arrest operation. I didn't expect the Inhumans to act so quickly. This time, I was wrong. We can indeed arrange them to go to the battlefield. The army commander, Fernandez, also agreed with their ideas, but he put forward some constructive suggestions. Since there are many Inhumans with special skills, we can choose some who are good at fighting during the war and let them join the various military forces to improve the overall combat effectiveness of the troops. They should not be simply mercenaries. Fernandez had seen the growth potential and the important function of immortality of the Inhumans. He was trying to divide the Inhumans and profit from it. The other three commanders' eyes lit up when they heard this, and they all responded, yes, if all the departments have mutants joining them, the combat power of the troops will also increase a lot. We can also let them carry out dangerous and difficult missions, hee. Only Commander Mun didn't speak and seemed to be taking a nap. Link took in everyone's expressions and couldn't help but smile. When they had just finished reading the Star Chain Plan, they were united against a common enemy and decided to put aside their prejudices and work together. But now that they had seen the extraordinary achievements of the Outlanders, they suddenly felt that they could do it. They actually began to make small calculations, wanting to divide up the Outlanders to increase their own strength. Everyone's thoughts were seen through by Link. However, if he didn't say anything, how could he rope in a player with just a few words? Players were quite snobbish. When you couldn't provide them with what they wanted, they would leave you without any hesitation. Then you'll have to get ready, commanders. Inhumans aren't that easy to control. Link paused for a moment before continuing. If no one has any objections, then the preliminary work will be arranged by the Military Intelligence Department. There are more than 10 days left until the scheduled date of the completion of the Star Chain Plan. I will use 5 days as the limit. If we can't stop the enemy's construction in 5 days, we will discuss a unified attack plan. Link didn't make things clear. Instead, he left some leeway. The 4 commanders decided to give Link a chance since the spies in the Sand Capital had been wiped out. At the same time, they had a lot of time and energy to gather the Inhumans and expand their strength. Link's words were exactly what they wanted. Then we'll do as you say. I'm very confident in you. First, you were personally stationed in the Weeping Valley, and then you made the great feat of building Shenmue City, adding a pass screen to the empty south of Shandu. You truly care about Shandu and serve the city and its people. If there's anything you need help with, just let me know. Air Force Commander Wimbledon said. Me too. If you need anything, you can tell me. Commander Tekode was in a good mood. Although he didn't get rid of the undercover spies in Shandu, he had removed such an unstable factor from the internal department, which was a big problem for him. He was visibly more relaxed than before, which was more effective than taking a tonic. I do have something I need your help with, said Link, his eyes brightened. Army Commander Fernandez was just about to say the same thing, but when he heard Link speak, he swallowed his words. In the next 5 days, I may need the Air Force to send out a few teams of aircraft for reconnaissance and bombing missions. As for Commander Dai, I'd like to ask him to come up with a main plan of action around the Star Chain project. The sooner, the better. With Commander Dai's guidance, I believe that the MI6 will be able to arrange the follow-up tasks more smoothly. Link could tell that although Dai Yi was the head of the special agents, he had a good grasp of the big picture and was unparalleled in terms of tactical thinking. The Military Intelligence Department's undercover missions and desert reconnaissance missions were basically carried out around the general principles sent by Dai Yi. In the meeting room, Dai Yi laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, you're too kind, Mr. Lin. Since you like my proposal so much, I'll make use of the time to come up with one for you today. Commander Wimbledon also gave Link a positive answer and said that air support would be on standby 24 hours a day. After the emergency military committee meeting, the 5 members walked out of the building together. How's the special forces? Link had been busy with the planning and barely went to the special operations camp. Secretary Benjamin was basically in charge of the daily work. Everything has been carried out in an orderly manner. The special forces recruited from the Kylin Hall have been taking turns to guide the new recruits training as instructors every day. There have been many hounds and soldiers who meet the combat standards. Link nodded and gave Benjamin a heads up. Maybe when the war really starts, the special forces will need to go to the battlefield. The hounds that Link had given to the special forces were strong and agile, which also enhanced their sense of smell. As long as there was some human scent, even if it was hidden in an underground bunker, it would still be able to sense it. If it was in the past, Benjamin would have frowned when he heard the word war. But now that he had been in the military camp for 3 months, he was already a tough man in his own words. His eyes suddenly lit up and he said, "Special Forces, get ready at all times, awaiting your orders." "All right, then train hard these days." Link patted Benjamin's shoulder, then got into the car and left. In the car, Link immediately called the Military Intelligence Department to arrange the next step of the mission. He reduced the number of spy cleaning missions in Shandu City, increased the number of frontline reconnaissance missions, and tried to add some mission options of destroying bunkers and ambushing construction teams. Other than the reconnaissance missions, which allowed one to do it alone, the rest of the missions were set as 5-man team missions. 10 people were too big a target, and their mobility would be reduced. 5 people was just right. Whether it was combat power or mobility, they were guaranteed. After they died, they would not have to donate equipment to the enemy. Moreover, after cooperating well, it would be much easier to clear a 5-person dungeon. Originally, the players were still immersed in the joy of last night's big purge in Shandu. After all, their actions had really affected the game, and it was quite influential. This kind of interaction greatly enhanced the players' sense of immersion. At the beginning, they were playing Don't Starve. Now, they were able to influence the mainstream media of the game. The positive feedback made them more motivated. However, before they could celebrate for long, the players from the various guilds in Shenmue City sent news that the Military Intelligence Department had updated a large number of new missions, and most of them were desert reconnaissance and destruction missions. At this time, the major guilds and organizations in the villa area all reacted. The large cleanup of the spies in Shandu had come to an end. The stage of dealing with foreign aggression was about to pass, and the next step was to take the initiative to attack and deal with the machinery faith. The first group of players who were still chasing the remnants of the extremist forces in the city decided to give up on the mission and return to the Military Intelligence Department of Mue to accept new missions. The guild's analysts and strategists were also analyzing the situation. The thief Liang in the think tank texted Wind the moment he got the news. The desert's machinery faith fanatics all have modified bodies. They have exoskeleton armors, synchronization chips, and modified weapons. I have a feeling that there will be a wave of spring for the mechanics. You can make arrangements in advance. Since the thief Liang was in the think tank, he could check the information of many of the surrounding forces. He also learned about the feud between Link and the Platinum Hotel. Currently, among the players in the mechanic class, only the gunners could modify their weapons and increase their combat power in the early stages. The remaining engineers and mechanics were all trash, mainly because the materials were too scarce and too expensive. The mechanic class had become a representative class that only the tall, rich, and handsome could afford to play. However, as the players attacked the desert, the mechanical zealots' material parts dropped, and the mechanic players in Sand City were about to welcome a small advantage. As the first group of players with the highest level entered the desert to scout, they were shocked to find that not only were there machinery zealots in the enemy camp, but there were also mercenaries from the Wasteland Gang. What surprised them even more was that there were players among the desert extremist forces.